Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 4, Episode 37. I am your host, Alejandro, and making his long-awaited return after surviving Hurricane Milton and now looking like a lumberjack as a result of said experience, Joseph La Russa AKA DonLionheart. How are you doing, Don?
Good. How you doing, Alex? Good to see you. Good to be back here
Yeah,
again. Always happy to appear.
yeah, it's so funny that you're the second person that now I can kind of like hear survival stories of hurricanes because my podcast co-host Paul was also kind of like victimized by Hurricane Helene. So
Yeah,
now, and now
definitely
you're.
not as victimized as he was. I never even lost power. I had one power
Mhm.
flash the whole night that it was going on, and that was it. So he's the one. Hopefully he's getting better with his recovery and everything. But
Oh
for
yes.
for me at least, no major issues. Thank
Yeah,
God.
Milton was one that looked so horrifying in the way, and then
Yeah,
managed to
it
kind of
did.
like it pumped the brakes. Thankfully, like by the time that it hit, that I know it was you and Brian also from SG and
Yep.
the Super magazine that I had a few weeks before because it was like Helene was going towards him the first like when we recorded the state of play reaction.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is kind of like a hurricane support group.
Yeah, I had no
It
idea
feels
that
like.
Brian was so close to me. I mean, he's literally like less than 10 miles from my condo down there is where he's based. So we're extremely close to one another, which is just, how small the world is, I
Yeah,
guess.
I know. And what's fair is that you flew into Florida, and that
Yeah, well, yeah.
so now you know to keep to look for your weather app more like carefully when you schedule your trips back.
Yeah, my girlfriend and I promised each other that we would never knowingly fly into potential natural disasters again. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but to be fair, it's like you're in New York right now, right?
Yeah, I'm in upstate New York in Rochester, yeah.
Yeah. Didn't a hurricane hit like New York one time also? So it's not like
Hurricanes
it's.
hit New Hurricane so hurricanes themselves hit New York with like kind of like a once a decade or less basis. They usually end up hitting Long Island, which is where I'm from, actually, down
Mhm.
down in lower New York. You're never really going to get a hurricane all the way up into Rochester. That would be almost impossible just based on the way that hurricanes get their strength from the water and everything.
Mhm.
To come that way up, it'd be really hard to do that.
Yeah, it would have to be like a
So
tornado, like it created like a tornado more inland to kind
yeah,
of hit your
yeah,
area.
that's right. We would be more likely to be hit by if you had a storm the size of Milton, like that came through, and you had the tornadoes going those hundreds of miles apart. Like, yeah, that's much more likely to be an issue over here. But yeah, New York gets hit by hurricanes. The biggest, most recent storm that you'd be thinking of is actually Superstorm Sandy
Sandy,
from
yes.
2012,
Mhm.
which was just before I moved back to New York, a couple of years before I moved back to New York. And let me tell you, dude, that storm so destroyed the subway system that
Mhm.
for basically the whole time that I lived in New York again, from 2014 when I moved back up until maybe like mid 2019 or so,
Mhm.
the subway was just constantly having these signs and periodic just days where they were not running on tracks to fix it, and they were like Superstorm Sandy recovery or
Damn.
hurricane reinforcement or something like that. Like, they needed to do years worth of work. It
Mhm.
was off the charts how bad it was, and it wasn't even a hurricane by the time it hit.
Yeah.
It was a superstorm. But
I vividly
yeah.
remember Sandy because that was my freshman year in college, and
Mhm.
it was also the week that Assassin's Creed 3 came out.
Yep,
So
yeah, that was
also,
my sophomore. That was my
mhm.
second year. Yep.
Yeah. So remembering that is like I usually tend to remember like what happened around the time that I maybe got this game or something like that. And I remember Sandy, and also because Colin Moriarty from Last Sun Media, like he is from Long Island, and he was
Hmm.
part of the podcast Beyond group at IGN at the time. And I remember
Yeah.
him talking about like his beach house getting completely destroyed by the hurricane. So
Yeah,
it was like.
Colin and I are from not the same town or anything, but we're from within probably 40 minutes of each other,
Mm,
driving wise, from because he's uh from his part of town, and I'm like dead center. I grew up in the, like, Suffolk County center of the island in Deer Park. So
mm,
for me, I'm pretty close to anything in any direction. Yeah.
yeah,
But
makes sense.
But
So
yeah, thank you again for having me. I'm glad to have made it through the the
yes.
storm and be back here safe and sound. No major damage. So
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're back because I've loved having you kind of like as a semi-regular that has helped fill in like
thank you.
as my podcast co-host Paul is still going through paternity like week in, week out. Even though he
Hmm.
did 2 weeks in a row this time, like he did that return episode like 2 weeks ago, and then I did one with a fellow season gaming and lesson media community member Rick Davis. You probably
Okay.
have seen him in like in the SD
Yeah.
chat, and I talk with him for a while. Like he likes my reviews a lot because he has found in me a voice that he like. You find your voice
Yeah,
as
sure.
liking he's found that in me. Like I chatted and I was like, "Do you want to do record for this week?" And he showed up, and then Paul was like, "I actually have some time," and he joined in halfway through the show
There you
for last
go.
week. So you can go listen to that if you want. But thank you for being here again, like Don, because
Of
we're definitely
course.
like gonna have you guys more often, like as I like for especially with some fun stuff that we have talked behind the scenes of what we kind of want to do as both content for here and also like for the SG side of things. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is just a reminder that this is the Xbox podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Fridays from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing, available on the YouTube channel Escape Gaming as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escape gaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. So time to talk about what we've been playing. You're the guest, Don. I want to hear about your Mafia journey because last time you were here, you had just finished Mafia 1 and in the classic difficulty mode. You were about to start Mafia 2. I saw that you were playing Mafia 3. You had choice words for Mafia 2, and ironically enough, Paul also had almost similar opinions about Mafia 2, but I want to hear it from you. I want to hear all about the slow walking in the prison.
Okay. Mafia 2 is a horrible video game. It is a really good story. It's not. I don't have any qualms on its story. I think I shouldn't say I don't have any qualms. I do have some qualms. I don't hate its story. I think its story is pretty good, and I like Vito more or less and the main characters. So for anyone who doesn't know, Mafia 2 is a sequel to Mafia, the first game. They in 2020 they released a remake of Mafia 1 and a definitive, quote unquote, really definitive, because it's not definitive, edition of Mafia 2 that was just essentially a really, really bad port of the PS3 version of Mafia 2 onto the PS4 and then current gen consoles. And so it is a sequel in that it takes place in the same world, but you're not playing the same character. Instead of playing as Tommy Angelo, you're playing as Vito Scaletta, and Vito is a different character. He is a war vet from World War II vet, and he had been part of the invasion of Sicily with the Allied forces and all that. So he's a very different character than Tommy Angelo, and it's fine. It's nice to have a different character, and I like one of the things that I've come to enjoy about the Mafia series is that you do get to see these different perspectives of the different characters here. But the thing with Mafia 2 that I don't like, because I was interested in the story and I do find that to be a pretty good story overall, is that it just doesn't feel good to play. Nothing about it feels good to play, unfortunately, at all. Like the shooting
It's
doesn't
old.
feel good, the driving doesn't feel good, and I didn't play this one on the hardest difficulty. Most of the qualms I have with Mafia 1 are probably because I played it on such a hard difficulty and like didn't have aim assist on and things like I was trying to make it hard for myself for a long time in there, because I know that it's a notoriously difficult game. I wanted to experience it that way and see what it was like and get through. And in the end, I actually really, in hindsight, I really like Mafia 1 on the whole. I think that if you knock down some of the crazy difficulty that I was playing it on, it would be really a really phenomenal game. I think that it holds up really well in the remake that they did.
Yeah, and specifically with the remake is that was made like with the knowledge of what they did with Mafia 3. If you see the way that you aim the gun in Mafia 1 and if you play Mafia 3, you see so many systems have been like overimposed into like the older game, despite still continuing kind of like Mafia 1 and 2 are very similar in that you're driving into from like story point to story point.
Yeah.
It's just that Mafia 2 is just a straight up remaster of the 2010 game. So it's like everything that was clunky and bad about like the gameplay side of things has been retained like in its remaster form, whereas the other one they try to remake it with one, they try to remake it a little bit more to align with
Yeah.
like the quality of life of 3.
And the problem with the 2 version that they released, because I'd played Mafia 2 before. I'd never played 1 until the remake, and I'd played 2 before, and I had not played 3 yet. So the problem with 2, even back then, was it didn't feel good. But the problem with the definitive version is it's just buggy and it's pretty broken in a lot of ways. Like tons of popping and flickering and things. And like at one point the screen like just had a half of it go blue and red or something. I mean, I'm colorblind, so I don't know what the exact color. It looked like blue and red to me. So I was just like, what just happened? And then I was doing the DLC for it because I wanted to do all of it because I never did the DLC. The DLC is horrible. It's awful DLC. It's literally like an opening cutscene and a closing cutscene in an alternate version of the city with a character that you don't know anything else about. And the missions just drive around. There's no checkpoints in the mission, so if you fail, you got to redo. It's so bad. And then you have one okay DLC where you actually get to play as Joe, who is the side character in the main game, and you see what happened, what he was doing while Vito was in jail, basically, because at one point there he goes to jail. Sorry for the spoiler for this game, I guess, but he goes to jail. Big deal.
Yeah,
it's a Mafia game. You expect
and you slow walk in the jail.
Yeah, you slow walk in the jail. I'm not going to obviously ruin the whole story or anything, but so you play as Joe in this in-betweener time period, and it's fine. It's the same stuff as the other DLC, except instead of a starting cutscene and an ending cutscene, you have a starting cutscene and 2 middle cutscenes and an ending cutscene, and then otherwise same thing, back and forth. Stupid missions. No, the 4 main missions have checkpoints. Thank God, because they sucked. It's just bad. It is a bad game. And I think that they should have done more for it. I think that they should have done more to fix it. I made a joke in the Season Gaming Discord that they clearly put all of their resources behind Mafia 1 remake, and they had like a guy in a back room who was kind of brand new to making video games handle the remaster by himself of 2. And I know that it wasn't Hangar 13 who did the remaster of 2, but they did whatever they paid too much. Like it's oh boy.
Yeah, when did because I know that it was like, I think they did it specifically because they wanted to sell like the Mafia trilogy, like that bundle.
It was all 2020, I believe. I think it all came out at once.
Yeah, so that was kind of like why they probably just shit it out the second Mafia, because it's like, oh yeah, we're like putting out this remake, but we also want to throw in this bundle so you can have all of it together, because they just threw in all the Mafia 3 and its DLC in it, which was already like 4 years old.
Yeah, so, and my qualms with the Mafia 2 story are more in that I feel like you never really get to understand the journey that Vito goes on. I feel like it's very like, you start off and you're back from the war, and then like stuff happens, and then you pretty quickly go to jail, like I said, and then you come out of jail at some point, and then you go through the rest of the game, and then it's over. And I felt like it's kind of a rushed story, whereas I don't feel like Mafia 1 remake story was that rushed. There were times where I was like, they could have been a little clearer on what happens here and what's going on exactly. Like watching Tommy's progression through the Mafia could have been a little bit more fleshed out, but I understood the timeline. I understood the time was passing, because it was over the course of a few years. Things happen, you see a new year. Things happen, you see another year, and time has gone by. And that's just not how 2 works. And so that's my biggest qualm with 2. And Vito's not the best of the characters. I do think that Tommy was a better character than him. So Mafia 2, I put a solid, whatever it was, 30 hours into it to finish all of the DLC and everything with it, because the main game is like 12 hours. The DLC, all of it together, was longer than playing the main game, and it was not as interesting and it was less fun than an already not particularly fun game to play. It was very good for podcast listening, but that was about it. So
do you love that kind of how can I say this, do you love that kind of like empty calorie food? Just something for it.
Sure. I mean, one of the other games on my list of what I've been playing is I've been playing more MLB The Show 23. Mm-hmm. That's a super chill podcast game. You sit there, you swing a bat at a ball, you throw a ball at someone's glove, and you're done. And you just listen and that's a very good, just like kick back and do nothing kind of game. And so I'm glad that I played the Mafia 2 again, because now I know that it wasn't just like my poor understanding of what they were doing. It really is just not a great game. It's really
it's the weakest Mafia game.
Like, it's really bad. So. Yeah. And yeah, so that's Mafia 2, and then I did start Mafia 3 as you had hinted at before, and I am really enjoying Mafia 3. Mafia 3 is interesting because I'm actually really invested in the story. I really, really like the storytelling frame that they have it set up in.
How it starts is amazing. You just kind of like that in media arrest, like the black guy, kind of like the old time. You're like, I remember the old
right.
Time.
Yeah, Father James. Yeah, it's a very good framing device, and the interstitial cuts to like future, and then like all of that, really cool. qualms with this one so far are more gameplay than story qualms. And this is again, this is another one not playing the hardest difficulty, just playing right in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm actually not a fan of the UI. I don't like the UI changes that they made. I like the older UI from Mafia Definitive and Mafia 2. I think those UIs are better. Like the speedometer's on the bottom of the screen, so it's like right here, and like I don't want to see at the bottom of the screen. That's weird. I want to see it on the side, like a you know a speedometer would look on a car. So some weird UI tweaks there. The gameplay is good. It feels good to shoot. I like shooting more in this game than any of the others, so I give it credit there. The shooting is definitely feels good, and it's got this really cool slow time driving mechanic where you like hit a button and you can like slow down time. Like I think that's really cool. There are cool things about it, and yeah, I'm enjoying that so far. I'm not very far into it. It's very modern in that now you have zones and you're taking over the zones and you're conquering the rackets and all that stuff. It actually, Alex, I don't know if you've ever played. Did you ever play the Godfather games on PS3?
Yeah,
and PS2?
At PS2 and PS3, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been looking into trying to, because I rented two, but I own one on PS2. So it has a lot of kind of like that same territory controller, right?
It does. It's better in those. It is. I will say, even though this is newer, those are better. Those are more fun from my memory of them. And I'm a huge Godfather fan, so I really EA bring those back. Come on, you're giving me Dragon Age. You're giving us new Mass Effect here. Get your license in line from Paramount and remaster those Godfather games, or just make them available on modern consoles. My goodness.
R.I.P. Visceral Studios, because Visceral made those games. It's wild to think that they went from that to Godfather.
Yeah, from
Godfather to Dead Space. Sorry, yeah. It's, available now on PS Plus. If you haven't played the Dead Space remake, go for it.
No, so I really enjoy the gameplay trappings of it. I do think so far in my very limited time playing that there may be a little too much. I think that's one of the common criticisms that people say, is that it's very grindy or whatever. I do think that may be the case. It may be a little grindier than it otherwise should be, but I'm still early. I can't really say for sure.
I can speak for that. Were you a fan of Assassin's Creed 1, the original?
A fan of it? Yeah, I guess you'd call me a fan. I think 2 is better.
Oh yeah, 2, yeah. But did you like 1?
Oh yeah, sure.
How much did you enjoy the investigation side, where you had to do like those activities before triggering the assassination?
I really didn't mind the investigations because I knew exactly where they were, and you just did them really quick, and then you could do more or less of them, and you could move on. Yeah.
So the grindy part is very similar to Assassin's Creed 1. Okay. And that was, I think, the more if you like no life this game and you just kind of want to see it through because you want to see the story, because the story is pretty interesting, is those grindy parts that you're gonna start feeling that, because it's like, gosh, I have to go like racket this thing or go to like this base again and do it again to just increase a certain number to like activate the story. That's like the only part that can really grind at your like at the pacing of the story and kind of like your enjoyment. But I feel the story itself, when they're like combined with the framing, the character that it's centered on, like the racism that it deals with, the real that is very that city is like the analog of like 1960s New Orleans. So it's like there's a lot of like how it deals with race is like so powerful that this is the one game that I told that I feel like the story like makes up for the shortcomings that you see like in the game side. I remember the one thing that I really bothered me, like especially later on, is the fact that there's no fast travel at all in the game. So you constantly have to like be driving to the stuff.
They've never had fast travel in their games. The closest they've come to fast travel is in the Mafia 1 remake. They have an option to turn on, turn off optional driving sequences or something.
Exactly. That's as far as they've gone, and hopefully the Sicily Mafia game that they announced at least understands you gotta have some sort of fast travel, even if it has to be clunky as hell, like Red Dead. But at least Red Dead even has that. You just have to probably be in camp.
Or the original Witcher fast travel is a little clunky too. You have to go to a signpost. The original Witcher 3 fast travel system, you have to be at the signpost and then click another signpost. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
So I will say Mafia 3 is still pretty buggy. It's still buggy. It's still janky. It has that. I think This is weird to say. I think the Mafia remake is the least buggy of the games. Mafia
Makes
2 Definitive Edition is just, it is one big bug, I'm pretty sure.
yeah.
But I've already run into one bug and then one weird thing. So early on in the game,
Let me guess. Did you lose control and the camera started spinning? Did that happen to you?
No, but I did lose control where the camera wasn't moving at all.
Uh-huh.
That was the second bug, actually. I had two bugs. So after I conquered the first racket, I could move Lincoln, but I saw him moving on the map. I could pull up my weapon wheel, but I was just stuck staring at the building that I just conquered. Like, that was it. It was not moving. The camera wouldn't move at all. But the weird thing I encountered is early on, in order to like bring the racket down, there's like a thing that's conquer or destroy patrols or something. Find patrols and destroy them. And I was like, I don't see any patrols. Like, I'm killing these things. How many do I need to kill? Turns out they weren't patrols. I went on to Google and I found a Steam post that explained that a patrol is very specifically a car driving around. And the only way to know where it is to go to a house, save the game, which there's no saving the game. You have to wait for it to autosave. So wait for the autosave, close the game out, reload the game, get into your car really quick, drive to the right, make a left, and then if you keep going and you're there in time, you'll see the spawn right there, and it'll spawn there every time. And the people on the forum seem to think it was a bug that they had to do it 3 times. I think that the task is actually destroy 3 patrols internally, and so every time you go and destroy a patrol, you have to do it 3 times total. So you just do that every time. Go kill the patrol, come back, restart the game, go back, kill the patrol, come back, start over, and then the third one, and then it triggers and you're done.
Yeah,
couldn't believe that.
Now, real quick, when you turn this game on, do you get the message that there may be errors?
No.
Okay, they took that out because Mafia 3 was one of those like early games from the PS5 that in backwards compatibility there was like weirdness in it. So it was like I know that there was like a bug that you would eventually just stop controlling stuff like that happened to my buddy Paul. He told me that he just was driving and suddenly like his camera started like spinning around and then like he couldn't control the game. That game
I've not had that one yet.
Yes. So, but that was when he was still popping the thing that, hey, there may be some errors that may happen with this software. So if it's no longer popping that, it means that they patched it in. So that's good. Another game you could find that was Batman Arkham City early on had that, and you had like flickering textures, like and the game that was most notoriously broken on PS5 was Assassin's Creed Syndicate that had a patch that got a patch last
that
week
I remember
because of the lighting, that it was like a flickering disaster. So it was Mafia 3 was part of that kind of like batch that apparently you're no longer getting that message. It means that they fixed. So
I actually just earlier this year went back and got my platinum in Syndicate because I had like 4 trophies that were missing and they were all just like do random things around the city, and I was like, I'm just gonna go and get the platinum on it. And so I went and I got the platinum on the PS5 and I didn't have that issue. But
because at that point they already patched it. So
I do need to warn about the one bug that I currently am experiencing because I went to bed when it happened. Apparently, if you do too much stuff in the game without doing some other stuff, and I'm being very generic because I don't really have a detail on it, it's just like if you just do too much open world activities, you can cause the game to confuse itself and not give you any story missions. So I did the main first racket, got all that done. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go and wiretap all of the neighborhoods in this neighborhood over here before I go. And so I go and I start wiretapping, and then I go and I talk to the second guy that you can recruit, who I'm not going to say who it is because it's a spoiler, but you talk to a second guy and you recruit him. And then nothing happened. I was like, that's strange. He told me to talk to these people and no, I'm not getting anything. So I finished wiretapping. I'm like, oh, maybe I have to go and talk to the third guy at the same time and get both of them in, and then missions will pop up. So I go, I do all the wiretapping in his neighborhood, talk to the third guy. Nothing. No missions, no story missions. And I'm just like, what is happening right now? And so I go online, I Google it again and again. Like a Steam post is like, yeah, this is broken. The game gets really confused. So sometimes you have to die. I was like, what? And the guy's post explained, it was like, yeah, you can try restarting the game, but that doesn't always help because the game isn't rechecking everything. But when you die in the game, it forces the game to recheck all of the stuff going on in the background, and then it'll update. So I don't know if restarting the game is going to help or not because it was like 3 a.m. when I turned it off and I was going to bed, or 3:30 or something like that. So maybe it'll be fixed. Maybe I have to kill Lincoln. But The annoying thing about that is if you die and you have money in your wallet, you lose half your money. So you have
Very
to go to
GTA
your
like.
safe and put the money in the safe and then kill yourself. And it's very stupid.
Yeah, it was their
Yeah,
first
little
time doing
things
like,
like that.
yeah, it was their first time doing like Mafia open world, like with an actual
Yeah.
activities to do in the open world. So it had those, it had the bugs and kind of like that first world problem
Yeah.
of like first timers doing an open world.
And
So
that's fine. I don't, I give them props for making that shift, and I recognize that it's a fine balance to really properly decide how much you should be giving, how much stuff you need to give to do to make it mandatory or optional or things like that. And I don't know if I'm gonna grind it all out. There's only a week until Dragon Age, so I don't have a ton of time. I've got some other games to play and work to do and just things. So we'll see how much I get done. My hope is to get through the game before Dragon Age launches. And I don't know if I'll pull that off. Hopefully I will. We'll
yeah,
see. I'm gonna
hopefully you don't
try.
burn your, yeah, hopefully you don't burn yourself
Yeah.
out with that.
Well, between that and the other game that I've been playing that I'm going to talk about right now, I have there's just a lot to do in a short period of time here. Because the other games, so other than Genshin Impact, always playing Genshin, not really worth mentioning other than
Yeah.
saying I'm playing it. It's on the list because I am playing it. I always do my dailies.
Mhm.
But I started Life is Strange Double Exposure. And I'm going to actually be reviewing Life is Strange Double Exposure for Season Gaming. We don't have a code or anything for it, so I'm just using the copy that I bought. I bought the fancy edition so that I could have the early access to the 2 episodes or whatever, or the advanced access or whatever the heck you want to
Yeah,
call it.
how many days of advanced access they gave for
Like
the
2 weeks.
2 weeks? Yeah, that's why I thought it was like
It's a lot.
strange. Yeah, that's why I was like, damn, because I think it was Greg Miller from Kind of Funny. He mentioned he reviewed the first 2 episodes. I was like, I thought the whole thing was gonna be out, and then when I heard that you were already playing, I was like, oh, that's why.
Yeah, they gave
like,
two. It was like 2 weeks because it comes out the 28th, and I think that you had access to episodes 1 and 2 as of Monday the 14th.
okay, it technically is the 29th, but it's like
Is it?
28th. Yeah, it's the 28th, like midnight. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, something like that. I wasn't sure. I think it's like 29th for us and the 28th for the Mountain Time and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're like in Easter time, so you have to wait until right at midnight.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, so I've been playing that, and I'm gonna be reviewing that. So between that and Mafia 3, just a lot in real life and stuff going on. But I started playing I played episode 1 all the way through, or chapter 1, or whatever you want to call it. It used to be episodes, now it's chapters. So I played all of chapter 1, and I have not played any of chapter 2, so I can't give any spoilers or anything because I don't even know them myself. But I will say I love it so much right now. I'm a huge fan of Max. Life is Strange is one of my favorite story franchises, one of my favorite franchises in general, because I really like Even Before the Storm, which I know some people didn't like that much. And I think 1 is a masterpiece, and I think 3 was really, really good. And the only fail was 2, which I thought 2 was okay for a really long time. And then I played True Colors, which is 3, or the third one. And in hindsight, after having played True Colors, 2 is awful. 2 is just terrible. Because I was sitting there in this very chair playing True Colors just 3 months ago, and I'm like smiling and laughing, and Alex is so charming. Not you, Alex Chen in the game.
Yeah, the Alex thing, I know.
Yeah, you're charming too, Alex. Don't worry. But yeah, so it's so much like exploring and looking around this world and these characters and the choices and the power, like all of it was so good. And I was like, wow, they really botched 2. Like they could have killed 2 like this for me. I mean, I know people like 2.
Yeah, 2's premise alone is really interesting because it's about like the immigrant kids, I remember.
But that's the thing, is the premise is like, okay, what are you going to do with it? And then it's like, oh, you're not going to do anything real with it. You're just going to make nonsense. Because that's the problem, is that it's a story of because they're, as far as I recall, they're not immigrants, the children, they're children of immigrants. They're American citizens, these people, these kids, teenager and the 10-year-old or whatever he is.
Yeah, they would fall under the DACA, the DACA label from like back then.
No, because DACA would be if they were not born here. If they're born here, they're citizens. So DACA is if you come here as a child. So I'm pretty sure they were born here. Yeah.
Yeah, and they got naturalized. Yeah, DACA's like being born outside and naturalized.
DACA was a temporary legal status that undocumented immigrants could be given if they were brought into the United States as children by their parents.
Mm.
Whereas in Life is Strange 2, and if memory serves, they're just U.S. citizens because they were just born here.
Yeah, and it's just the parents that were immigrants. So
Right, exactly. So, and that's like, okay, that's a premise. What are you going to do with that premise? And the answer to that question is they're not going to do anything with it. It's just going to be nonsense. It's just going to be like, oh no, something crazy happened at the start and my brother has powers. I need to go on the run. Like, what? Like, from the out, I'm just like, why are you going on the run right now? He's 10, he's a child, and you're going to take, and you're 15 or whatever, and you're going to run away? No. And so just from there it goes downhill of just nothing they ever did made any sense. And even down to the ending of the game, which I won't spoil, of course, but even down to the few choices of different various endings you could get, I'm like, none of this makes any sense, and I could not stand it. I couldn't stand it. But Alex Chen's story made a lot of sense in her, ability to sense emotions and how that would impact someone if you could tell what other people were feeling. Like, that would have a pretty big impact on your mental health if you knew what other people felt. And obviously Max and her time travel powers in the first game, like, those are good stories. And so really being excited for the return of Max into Double Exposure. She is still Max, and everything about her is Max. She still is dorky and into her photographs, and she loves her rock music. Like, you could see why she was friends with Chloe and all that back in the day and all that stuff. And it's really cool. It's just, it's so cool to see her as an adult, because I think they kind of mismarketed. I didn't watch a ton of the marketing, but I was under the impression that she was like a college student or something, but she's not a college student. She's like a professor.
Oh, okay. No, in the original.
In the original, yeah, she was in high school. She was a senior in high school in the original, and I thought she was like a college student, or that's how the marketing made it seem. But she's actually like a visiting professor for the semester as a professional photographer teaching a seminar on photography. And I'm like, oh, so this is like adult Max. This is not like young adult Max. Like, she's adult Max. She has a staff badge. Her friends in this game, Moses and Safi, they're like staff members or master students who are like teaching it as well. Like, these are adults, and that's a really cool dynamic to see the change and see how she's grown up. And I was immediately endeared to the cast of characters in the game, and I was just so happy to see her back. And they do their best to reference Life is Strange 1, and I don't know how much they'll take all that into account, but a little bit so far.
That's my big question, because if you remember the end of Life is Strange 1,
yes, I remember.
me that I never really played everything afterwards. I just kind of followed the series, and I was always like, I'll wait for all episodes to go out, or maybe go on sale and I'll play them, and I never did. The two endings for Life is Strange 1 are like so different, about kind of like what happens to like the city, like what your decisions are. Is that referenced in what you played, or are you still kind of waiting for them to see how they tie that up?
No, they reference it insofar as they let you make the choice of what your choice was in one.
Awesome.
Really early on in Double Exposure. Like, we have established my canon. My canon is established already. And,
that's cool.
There's like tiny nods. Like, it's not huge. It's not a big difference so far in what's going on. Obviously, everything that Max went through in one, whatever ending you choose, she's got trauma from. And so she's dealing with some of that trauma still, and she's a little bit reclusive. And so making friends hasn't been great for her, and just in general. And obviously her life after one changes depending on which choice you made. I don't know what the other direction is going to show if I'd made the other choice, because I chose the one that I made, but it's little nods so far. It's probably a bigger nod to the choice than any of the other games have had so far. Because in 2, which you wouldn't know, but in 2, you go and you actually will meet the stepfather of Chloe in 2.
Interesting.
Yeah, you meet her stepfather.
So it's 2. Not a separate scene, because I only like played episode 1 from what I remember. I don't even remember if I finished it, and I didn't, and I wasn't sure if it ever like dovetailed.
It goes, it's more than a dovetail. It's right along the line. You meet when you end up in like Arizona, I think it is, or something, or New Mexico. You end up in a desert encampment thing. You have Chloe's stepfather in that, like, directly in the game, and then you actually will drive past Arcadia Bay on the journey into as well. So you'll see it. So there are direct
more
connections
nods.
to it. Yeah, more nods. But in this one, there is a nice. It's a really early opportunity. Safi is the character you're talking to, and she's like, you never really tell me about yourself. who is this person? And blah, blah, and then you can make your choice. Basically, the question is, who is Chloe? And then you go from there because she sees a picture of Chloe. You have a picture of Chloe, she sees the picture of Chloe, and then that's where you can make your choices as to what you did in the game and what the outcome was, and that sort of thing. So
that's cool.
Yeah. I will say one thing that has bothered me about this so far has been I never interpreted Max's sexuality in any way. I just felt like Max's sexuality was whatever you wanted it to be. If you wanted her to be into Chloe in a relationship or you whatever. Like I never got anything from that, which is, just like in True Colors, I never got that either. You could pick whether you wanted to, be with the guy or the girl in that game as well. So like I appreciate that freedom. And so like, for example, in True Colors, I felt that Alex gave me she was a bisexual person, but she was going to pick the girl in this case. Like that was where I went with that.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's kind of forcing you into Max being a lesbian, which I think is strange because I never got that vibe from any of the other games that they released. Like they're forcing you into choosing the character. Like you don't get a say in it, which I don't care. They obviously they can do whatever they want, but I just found that to be really strange to me. Is like, why are they insisting that Max is a lesbian here when that was not even really hinted at earlier in the series in the first game, where she's just like, oh, she's just a high schooler. Who knows what she is right now? And they're just like, no, she's a lesbian. I'm pretty sure. I'm like, okay, like if you say so, it's your story, your game. You tell me what you want to tell me. But I was just a little disappointed in that because that was never how I read Max.
Yeah, and also takes away the element of choice because it gave you the choice last time.
So. Right? Yeah, exactly. And as a fan of romance in games, I like having those choices. It's fun to do that sometimes. It was fun to have the choice between between Ryan and Steph in True Colors and choose which one I wanted to pick because of which character I like the most. And to be fair, I almost always was going to go towards Steph because I loved Steph from Before the Storm because that was another connection. She's in the Before the Storm prequel and she's a main character, like a main assisting character in True Colors. So there's a lot more connection to this through this franchise. It's much more spiderwebby than I think you realized, Alex. Yeah. You should try them.
No, for real, because sometimes I get into like that mood that I just want those kind of full story-based games that is just all about that. So yeah, excited to try this one whenever there's a sale because boy, there's so many games.
I know.
There's still so many games. There's still a PlayStation 5 Pro that you still have to pay for. So because I'm still waiting for that kind of like the scare. Yep. I'm still waiting kind of for that notification to be like for me to pop. I was thankful that do you read what happened? What happened to me? That I checked.
You had to wait and your sister bought it for you or your cousin
it's more like I was gonna send it to Florida via Trans Express because they sent stuff here. The fee to bring that damn thing was $279.63. So I was like, nope.
It's a heavy console.
Yes. so I was like, nope, no thanks. And then I asked my sister that just happened to be in the US around kind of like the time the Pro's gonna be. I was like, can I send it to you and you just bring it over to me? And she was like, yeah, I'll do that for you. So I was like, cool. Amazon charged me $42 for the shipping.
Yeah,
I'd rather $42 than $279. I don't want.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I didn't want a Pro to be like an almost grand investment, especially not being the anniversary one.
Yeah, I got lucky. My Pro essentially comes out to free more or less because we had Amazon money saved up, so I used like $300 in Amazon cash, and then my mom had some other credit card rewards that covered like the vast majority of the rest of it that she just had sitting around. And then as a as a Christmas gift, an early Christmas gift, she's like, all right, I'll just cover the other. It was like $200 left or something. She's like, I'll just cover the extra $200 for you as a Christmas gift here.
Sweet.
So so that worked. That was nice of her to do because I was gonna buy it anyway. And
and you're not gonna sell your base PS5, right? You're giving it to.
Yeah, my girlfriend's gonna keep it at least. I mean, if she really decides she doesn't want it, I guess I could sell it. But I would never. I already got screwed over once by the trade-in functionality because you can't transfer your stuff when you trade it in beforehand. Yeah. So I had all of these like screenshots and videos saved on my base PlayStation 4 that are just gone because I couldn't transfer them over because you can only transfer screenshots and all that stuff from console to console. the trophies, when you get trophies, it like captures them. You can only transfer those
Hmm.
captures if you do a console to console transfer. I still
Hmm.
have all those videos and pictures saved on like a thumb drive somewhere. Like that still exists because I took them off. But yeah, so I would never do a trade in beforehand again.
Yeah.
I want to do the direct transfer. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep it for now. And if she doesn't want it, we can maybe get rid of it. But she likes games, and I want her to have the thing available if she wants to play.
Yeah.
So
Theoretically, when I get the Pro, I could put my PS5. I have the PS5 digital. I could theoretically just put that one for sale. I said the same thing about my Series S because I started with a Series S and then got a Series X for Christmas when it was like
mhm.
349, and I was like, yeah, I'll sell it. And then I never did. I was like,
Yeah.
I have the X in my room and then I have the S in my living room.
hmm
So I'm like, I say I want to sell the
Yeah.
five, so at least I can kind of like recoup the at least some money from the $700.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, I also wouldn't mind having a PS5 in my living room
Yeah.
because I want the Pro in my room because it's a smaller room, and I'm gonna see more the benefit of having such a big screen so
Yeah.
close to me, so I have a better resolution. Whereas
Yep.
outside in the living room, when I've been like, we got a new TV for the living room. It's still not an OLED, but it was like still like an LG, a pretty advanced LG. And the
hmm
distance, the viewing distance, I was like, I put reverse on, and you know that reverse is pretty notorious blurry 60 FPS game, and it looked great
Yeah.
there. So I was like, you know what? It's like maybe this one could stay there if I want to just kind of live, and then the Pro is
Yeah.
my room machine. So I have to kind of like weigh that in,
Yeah.
just to see just to see where I are. I have the advantage that I could technically sell my digital for $500 here because of where the prices are, like in the
That's
Facebook
cool.
marketplace. Like,
Yeah.
it's like going for 450 right now. And that's the slim, the new one, the newer one, that's the
Uh-huh.
slimmer slim. And I have a hard drive. I installed the hard drive into this one, so I have like
Yeah.
the main, and then I put like 1 TB. So I was like, I was thinking of taking the terabyte out and put it in my PS5 Pro. So be like, hey, I could have like 3 TB. But then I'm like, if I leave it there, then I could be like, hey, this is a digital PS5 that has 1.5 TB of memory
Yeah.
for stuff, and maybe that way I can then sell it and be like, because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's like I have 1.5 TB, so I'm gonna have two with the Pro, and then
Yeah.
eventually I can then buy another one of those because I was looking into maybe getting more space for that. So I was like, maybe I could do that, but we'll have to figure out whenever I have that machine, like in
Yeah.
late November.
They had they had a lot of good memory sale drives, SSD drives for sale on Amazon for like the Prime days they had a couple weeks ago. I
Yeah.
was tempted because I actually have an extra 2 TB drive in my
Mhm.
PS5 right now. Um, and I have a lot of stuff on there because I keep a lot of stuff. I don't really get rid of things. So my
Mhm.
plan is to take that out, transfer everything that's on the main unit right now, which will still
Mhm.
leave me with a whole terabyte of space. Try and
Yeah.
take the the 2 TB thing out, put it in the Pro, and then just leave the basic PS5, put that into the bedroom, and that can be where she has it if she wants to use it, or I have it if I want to use it too. And that will be just with the basic hard drive. I won't need anything else in there, and I'll have 4 TB in the Pro because whatever else, she's not going to use it anywhere near as much
Exactly.
as I do. So I want the extra space in mine because I was really tempted to buy the cheaper storage. I was like, no, I don't. I already spent enough. I don't need another 2 TB drive because I bought this. I got the 2 TB drive in like 2021. They were not cheap at that point. I bought them
Yeah.
pretty quick because I
Yeah.
wanted the extra space. I didn't even want to think about it. And there was a really good deal. I ordered it through Amazon UK actually, and I had it shipped to my house in Florida. I got
Yeah,
a
it
good
was one
deal
of
on
those
it.
times. Yeah, like trying to buy anything in
Yeah.
2021 was a weird time. But I bought
Yeah.
mine in a Black Friday sale in
hmm
2022. So
Okay.
I got my one
Yep.
terabyte
Mine was
for
Black Friday one.
yeah, for $60,
Yeah,
and
and
then
it
a
worked.
good
It
one.
was yeah. I got the 2 TB for I think it was like 150 or
That's good.
170 or
Yeah,
something.
that's good. That's
3 years ago. That was a really good deal for
yeah,
it.
two
So
terabytes is like a 200 plus like investment.
yeah,
So 150 for that was really good.
yeah.
So
It was a really good deal. It was like an XPG brand or something I think or some I forget. It was a sale that Eurogamer and Will Judd from Eurogamer had put on the Eurogamer Digital Foundry deals
mhm.
page, and I was like, oh, okay, why not?
That's where I found it, and then it redirected me to the US store, but I waited for
Oh
them to tell me which
yeah,
one to buy. So
yeah.
the Digital Foundry, they never miss.
No,
So
exactly. So I was like, all right, they're saying it's fine. I got it, threw it all in, and then it's like doing surgery, like removing that thing and very carefully putting the heat sink on and
Uh-huh.
sliding it into. He's like, he's being
Yeah,
so
I bought the
careful.
one. Yeah, I bought the one with heatsink already included because I was like, I just want
Yeah,
everything that I just unlock the thing and just insert it.
yeah. Mine had the heatsink, but I had to put the heatsink on it. Like that was the difference. Is it came with the heatsink, but it didn't come with it like installed. So I had to
Uh,
like unscrew it and place it in and rescrew. Yeah, but
yeah.
yeah. So that's what I've been playing.
Mhm.
Very busy with games.
Yeah, it's been 3 weeks,
Happy.
so
Yeah,
it's quite a
yeah,
few.
it has. And I had a lot of free time sitting in my house during a hurricane without going anywhere. So that's when I did the Mafia stuff, was
Mhm.
basically in the middle of the hurricane overnight. I was playing Mafia 2
Yeah.
until like 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. when I was like, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to
Yes.
bed.
But you need to wait awake just in case the hurricane category 3 would turn to another
Yeah,
5 again.
exactly. Yeah, I basically waited until the storm, the eye was past us, and that's when I went to bed. I was like, all right, now I can sleep. And that's when the worst winds started anyway.
Uh,
But yeah, so those are my games, and I've been enjoying gaming, and I'm really excited to keep playing more. And I want to see where Mafia's story goes. I don't know anything about Mafia 3's story from here on out, so
oh
I'm
yeah.
excited.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if you end up finishing it, but obviously like
I'll
more
finish it no
important.
matter what. Just whether I
Yes.
finish it in the next
On
week,
time.
I don't know. Yeah,
Exactly, yeah. Especially because once like the big one comes out for you, it's like life's over. So we'll
that's
see
why
how
I took
that.
days off work.
Yes. Good thing it didn't get a last minute delay. Imagine if it had. But
eh,
yeah, that would have been fun. But hey,
a
good
last
thing
minute
it.
delay would have put it into the PS5 Pro, so I would have been okay. I would have been
Oh
happy that
yes.
way too. But
Exactly.
what
And
have you
you're
been playing, Alex?
so I've been playing Alan Wake 2 The Lake House, the DLC that came out 2 days ago. That was kind of like confirmed at the Xbox partner showcase from last week. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I was the guy that reviewed Alan Wake 2 for Season Gaming, and I gave it a 10. From Season Gaming, kind of like call it historic. I specifically like what I loved about it was that I thought it was like a new benchmark in how do you mix the storytelling of TV, film, and game without forgetting that you're a video game. That it feels like the story of Alan Wake 2, as it is, wouldn't be as impactful if it was just adapted into like a film. Like what makes Alan Wake 2 so special is the fact that it's all of that, but never forgot it was a video game, and it was a pretty horrifying survival horror experience. Like pretty well one that was like so tense and so unnerving that it's one of those that it's so great that I don't want to play you again because it's like it was so scary. So I really enjoyed that. And I played the Night Springs DLC, which was the first one that came out back in June, but I didn't do like a review. I just played it, and I kind of
Mm-hmm.
was just that's around the time that my things started happening that it shall be unnamed. So I was kind of like already
Mm.
busy with other stuff. So I just kind of like played it and experienced it, and I did the Lake House, and I actually wrote a review. I titled it the Lake House, but I used it as an opportunity to review all the content of the DLC because the physical deluxe edition of the game, which is the only way that you can get the physical version, includes both of them together. So it's like, you know what? Like this is for you guys for the physical deluxe edition. But
That's cool. That was really smart.
yeah, so I was like, let's just kill two birds in one stone. I'm gonna review it. Like that review should hopefully be up now. I sent it yesterday by the time that we're recording. So yeah, how big were you into Alan Wake 2 before I go into this one?
Never played it.
You didn't play
I
it?
no,
Okay.
I never. The only Remedy game I have ever played is Control. I don't have any experience with the Max Payne games. I don't know
Mhm,
anything about them. I don't know anything about Alan Wake
mhm.
or the Xbox One Quantum Break. I'd
Quantum
never
Break.
played any of those. Like
Mhm,
I played Control because Control looked like it was a really fun game with an
mhm.
interesting story, and Control was a really fun game with an interesting story. It was
Yeah.
exactly as Hogue likes to say. It was exactly what it said on the tin. Did
Oh
exactly what it
yes.
said on the tin.
Yeah. I would
Um,
go. I would go as far as Control is a really fun game with a interesting semblance of a story because it's so weird. It's
it
like
is
it's
weird.
just
It's
yeah,
it's
it's
super
just weird
weird,
as
but
the
it's
game. Yeah,
I
it's
really
what's
like it. I think it's a fun story because I don't do horror games. So
mm,
Control
yeah,
was like that line for me personally, and it was like right there. It walked right up to the line of like kind of scary, but not
yeah,
actually scary. It was more creepy,
yeah,
and so
creepy. Yeah.
and I was good with that. And I really, and flying around is, and Jesse's a great character, and all the characters were good, and it was really beautiful. I didn't play it right away. I waited till the PS5 Ultimate Edition came out, and
Mhm.
I didn't even buy it. I got it on PS
Smart.
Plus. It was
Yeah,
on PS Plus
real
Extra,
smart
so
because
or Plus, yeah,
the PS4 Pro version of that game, like performance wise, was
yeah.
rough.
Yeah,
Like
so I just played it on. I own the PS4 version. I just had never gotten to it, and then it was free on PS Plus, which was
mhm.
just PS Plus at that point. It was before it was the
Yeah.
tier. So I got on PS Plus for free, and I played it. and I platinumed it. I really love that game. It's got a little annoying of a platinum in some ways, but it's a really good game.
Yeah,
So
that's
I go ahead.
yeah, that's one of those that I have it installed to go clean up whenever I have like the time, because I've been trying to do some cleanup duty for platinums, like I'm doing with
Yeah,
Assassin's Creed Brotherhood also recently. Like I've been
yeah. It
installed
was a
to get
COVID
to
game for
clean
me,
up.
I think, when I played it when it came to Plus. So I just had plenty of
Mhm.
time. So
Yeah,
I got the platinum in, and I very much enjoyed it for
yeah.
sure. So
So no
I've
experience with Alan
no
Wake 2
experience with Alan
whatsoever.
Wake 2. Yeah. So because Alan Wake, I heard how great it was, but I'd never played one,
Mhm.
and I don't know. Maybe I'm interested at some point in trying them. Maybe.
Yeah. So the funny thing with Alan Wake 1 is that it has semblance of a horror game, but it's more like in that creepy style, and it's more of an
Yeah.
action game.
Hmm.
Alan Wake 2 was them being like, no, we're gonna make Alan Wake 2 like the game we wanted Alan Wake 1 to be, like in survival horror, because we didn't know how to do one.
Hmm.
And it is full of all these survival horror trappings that you like understand, of like a clunky shooting, like intentionally clunky shooting, so as to every battle that that you face in the game feels like a kind of like a nail biter.
Yeah.
Uh, Puzzle solving that requires a lot of like backtracking and analyzing environments and all of that, and also including you going to like a mind place where you're kind of like connecting the dots like a detective, like if you were freaking LA Noir from back in the day.
Yeah.
And like mixed with like a really fascinating story that kind of like it's a look and a meta narrative look into the nature of storytelling, writing, theme threading, IP ownership, and all of that. Is like these are things kind of like it being based on a writer is very, it's like it serves as a gateway for Sam Lake, the director, who's like very prodigious about how he writes his stories, to also serve as kind of like meta commentary towards like the nature of writing. And those things were kind of touched upon in Alan Wake 2, and the DLC was a way for them to like tackle the whole structure of storytelling head on, from both a fourth wall breaking way, and also and also a way to make it all part of the text. From the two DLC packs that they released, I would say like the DLC from June, the first DLC from June has 3 small episodes that are all unique in tone and style. The
Hmm.
third episode from that DLC pack is probably like my favorite content chunk that they released from the DLC, because the one that came out this week felt more like an extension of Alan Wake 2. It felt less audacious in like
Hmm.
in trying to be different, instead of like what the Lake House DLC that came out this week is Control, but now with Alan Wake 2's tone and gameplay trappings. But the aesthetic is Control. So it's like
Hmm.
all that the exact same kind of like that 1960s empty vibes of Control. It's like now like being put through like the darkness and like the creepiness, like borderline beyond creepiness that is like Alan Wake, that like
Hmm.
jump scares you, like monsters show up, like enemies are like tough to battle sometimes because you have to like
Right.
really scrounge.
But it
And
doesn't feel like Control. It feels like Alan Wake.
yeah, it is the gameplay of
Okay.
Alan Wake. It's the gameplay of Alan Wake 2 in the
Mm.
Control setting. And it manages to finally, like, after Ed Remedy was like, yeah, the Control and Alan Wake are in the same universe, even though tonally they were like so. Despite both of them being weird, it was like, huh, interesting that you're trying to like connect them both. The main
Hmm.
Alan Wake 2 campaign, including some Control agents, especially the one that you control, pun intended, in this DLC, which is the Janina Gavankar's character, it allowed to finally give an idea of like how both such disparate, like tonally different games can like work together. Especially because like Control is trying to explain the weirdness, whereas Alan Wake 2 is all about the mysticism of the weirdness. And the Lighthouse DLC is the first time that I feel like both sides of both these games coalesced into one in a way that actually made sense. One
Hmm.
thing that's always interesting about how Alan Wake 2 tells a story is that you always have like Alan Wake kind of like typing and writing and narrating some of the things that are happening to you. And in universe, the characters know that a lot of the weird stuff that is happening is because of a result of Alan Wake's power through his prose. And this Lake House DLC is like so interesting. It's a Sam Lake takes the opportunity not just to talk about the importance of structuring your story, but how sometimes storytelling is so unique to a specific author that despite you knowing like the structures of a story, you cannot recreate that. Almost kind of taking pointed criticism towards AI writing, even having like posters kind of like saying AI sucks and things like that, because you can imagine someone trying to put a a structure through the AI and be like, write me something that sounds like this.
Yeah.
And it starts dealing with that in a way that's like so clever, and that is this DLC at its strongest.
Interesting. Okay.
However, where this DLC is at its weakest is probably the gameplay, because the thing that I didn't really hit on my review last time, because I was like so mesmerized by the storytelling of it all, is that there's a fine line that you really need to like cross when it comes to survival horror in signposting and how you do puzzle solving and all that. That Alan Wake 2 like crossed was like threading the line into being like complete nonsensical and what you're expecting from the player to solve something. That's absolutely the worst in the Lake House, because if you remember the office spaces of Control, they are a mess. So
yeah, they are.
and that mess is like translated here, and it's something, and because this mess is like so darkened in this, but Control was an overly bright game, and this one is like put that aesthetic into bigger darkness, harder to see stuff, harder to like find like the specific like text that you need to read to figure out some codes to put into computer that is preventing you progress, or for you to unlock some doors that you kind of have to do. That was kind of like running in circles. I was like, what the frick am I supposed to do here? It's like to the point there was a point where there were some prompts that were allowing me to press, but nothing was happening. I was like, did my game break? Like, this is my game break, and then I reset it, but no, it's like I needed to go to like this obscure darkened room where there was like this box that I needed to carry to put in this thing to activate the prompt that it was giving. So it was like there's a lot of clunkiness in the gameplay that I knew was there in the main game, but it was felt more exacerbated here because of its setting. But what it says about like the storytelling of this universe makes me even more excited for Control 2, because now that Control 1 kind of like gave illusions of the connection towards Alan Wake. That at first you could kind of see it as like fun Easter eggs, into like now be like, no, it's a full-on universe. Like a lot of the things that Remedy has done has kind of connected. And what's even more fun, like when you go further back to DLC 1, that third episode that I say is an old-timer, it's Remedy working around the fact that they don't own Quantum Break. The episode is called The Time Breaker, and it's like they put into the text kind of like sometimes the lengths that you have to go as a storyteller to use IP that you don't know and write around that.
I'm sure the Remedy lawyers were squirming when they came to them with that idea.
But the name is called Time Breaker, and you use Sean Ashmore's character, which was like the time breaker of Quantum Break, but he's not the exact same character. It's not the same like style. But it's so funny that it's clear that this is where they wanted to insert Quantum Break into kind of like the in-universe, because the same thing kind of happened with Max Payne. They don't own Max Payne. Rockstar owns it.
Rockstar does, yeah.
But they have a detective character played by, it was a mixture of the face of Sam Lake, the director, and the voice of James McCaffrey, who sadly passed away late last year because he had cancer. So it was like that mix, and that character, that is basically, that's what Max Payne was in that original one. They had literally that kind of character, but it's not called Max Payne, it's just called Alex Casey. But it is clear that if they owned the Max Payne IP, he would be Max Payne here, because Remedy has like worked overtime to try to make all of it kind of like fit at once. And they have used Alan Wake as kind of like the connecting tissue, kind of like the connecting web that makes all of it make sense. And I feel the DLC is a very, like, at least the first pack from June is a very cheeky way into working all of that, while this Lake House DLC now more solidifies the connections between Control and Alan Wake, despite the fact that this controls more like gameplay wise like Alan Wake 2. Gotcha. I'll be fascinated to see if the tone changes for Control 2, if they're gonna go more horror, or they're gonna try to keep it just more in that side of creepy, because that's more of an action game. Like Alan Wake 2 is not an action game. So for fans of Alan Wake 2, especially from like the storytelling side, the first DLC pack from June is so audacious, and it's like something that you have to see to believe, because it's so wild. That's like, it probably, I made the joke in my review that I feel like when they conceived that third episode from that first DLC, they probably had taken an edible, and they were in such a high when they like put it, because like the gameplay changes, like the storytelling stylings change. It's like they throw so much weirdness into the thing that makes sense for this world, that I just appreciate that at a high level you have a studio like Remedy like play in that kind of level of storytelling. And that's the thing that this thing is at its best. And then the Lake House was like more Alan Wake 2, just weaker, like at least kind of how I saw it. But overall I feel like both these DLC packs feel like well deserved flawed but well-deserved victory laps for the Alan Wake 2 project, because this was a 13-year in development, kind of like idea that Remedy had that was like stuck in development hell because Microsoft owned the Alan Wake IP originally. They didn't want to do more because it didn't sell that much, but they didn't want to release the Alan Wake IP. So Remedy had to kind of like work with them to like maybe create something else. Like they created Quantum Break, and then Control was them trying to have something that they could control themselves. That's why the name was Control, because it's gonna be finally an IP that it was for. It was not gonna be like tied somewhere else, because they have been creating IPs that then were like they stopped working, but they continue. Like Max Payne 3 was not made by them. That was
that was Rockstar.
That was full on Rockstar. So that's why it's interesting reading like within these games you can kind of get the meta commentary of like what it's been like for Remedy, Sam Lake and company to work with all these games, like with all this different IP, and then finally finding a way to mix it all together, that if you get it you kind of like catch it, and that's like really cool. It's like no other game does storytelling like this. And the best part is like, unlike let's say modern day Naughty Dog, like with Last of Us, do you see the joke that I put in the season gaming chat of like Neil Druckmann's interview about kind of like the best storytelling happens when you're playing and you're in a space and you learn the history of the space and things like that. And it's like,
no, I didn't see it. No,
that's cold environmental storytelling. You pretentious ass. Like at the very least, like with Remedy, you see them poke fun at themselves, understand the nature of writing, but it never like crosses the line into we're just like self-congratulating ourselves, like we're smelling our own farts, like it feels like it's gonna get there, and then they poke fun at themselves in a way that is just not Marvel, like let's self-deprecate. It's like is the right way to break the fourth wall in a way that also feels respectful to the tone and like the earnest approach to how they do things. So if you ever get the testicular fortitude to play a horror game, so you can at least see that the weird storytelling, I would say Alan Wake 2 is at least worth one playthrough.
Yeah, so, honestly, the thing for the horror games is like I've really never played one, so I couldn't say if I find them scary or not. I just don't find the attempt to scare me to be fun. Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. Is like I know a lot of people like that, like, oh, it's so scary, it's dark and scary. Like I don't know if I would be scared of that sort of thing because I'm not interested in finding out, you know. But I'm glad that this game exists for the people who love it. I know that it's beloved and it got great scores, and it's, you know, unfortunately I don't know how well it's sold. What bothers me, Alex, is that people say that it didn't sell well, and we know that it didn't sell super hot because they're still making money back from it. They haven't made all their money, but people are like, oh, it never showed up on the charts. But NPD very clearly, or Circana now, very clearly said that they're not a partner with them, so they're not on the charts. Like they're not a part of the charts, and it's very frustrating when people give misinformation. Yes,
and also when did the disc version come out? This week.
Yeah.
So it was just digital. So something like if you're not partnered with Circana, you're just an Epic Game Store, not Steam, the Epic Game Store.
Yeah.
You're not sharing that data. It's not showing up. It's like stop conjecturing like how
it literally can't show up if they're not partners. Like they only show things that they're partnered with. They are generally partnered with all of the big things, but Remedy was not one of them, and without a physical one there is no partnership between stores. So anyway, I don't have a particular investment in Alan Wake 2 or being sold well, but I do hate misinformation. I do not like when things are wrong.
Yeah, I know they confirmed 1.3 million. And the thing is that their games, because of where they're built, they have managed to make them for cheap or like cheaper. So I mean, and the long tail of these games have held them to like hit a point of profitability, because that's what that did happen with Control. That had a physical and it didn't chart, but then it kept like selling like quietly. And because it was made by $30 million. It was pretty good.
It was good. It was a good game.
That's how they did. That's how like Remedy does it. So they like their games are long tail. The word of mouth is usually pretty good, and that's kind of how they build. And Alan Wake 2 is probably their most art house, like critic bait, Oscar bait game in a way. Like in a way that is one of those that because of all the praise that this game got also is what held more like the interest. And I'm really curious to see like how much the PS5 Pro like enhancements that they've been kind of like being public about. If you follow them on Twitter or whatever social media that you use nowadays, they've been kind of putting like how they're using the Pro, so that could be like a one showpiece showpiece game you can kind of try your new console with, and that's
Yeah.
like a really
And my
creative
showpiece is Dragon
yeah.
Age, but you
Oh
know.
yes. Let's see. Hopefully, Frostbite handles the pro enhancements good.
Yeah.
So new game that was like more of my bigger beat. Like over the last 3 weeks, I kind of went on a bender and played through all three Spider-Man games. I've talked about like
All three?
Yeah, all three. I replayed all three. So I finally beat Spider-Man 2 after not having played it after I played it for the first time last year. And I would say like I definitely feel way higher about this game now that it was not the buggy experience that it was for me, because that was kind of like the source of my disappointment. Because that's what's funny. Like I had different conversations like Paul, and you have kind of similar opinions like him, and also Rick Davis, who I had last week, where you felt the limitations of the combat system compared to kind of like the versatility of the original one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, whereas I see that the versatility is still there. It's just more a fighting game. It has kind of like the trappings of a fighting game, that the only tool that's technically not back is Strip Mine. Every of the other tools have been like repurposed on different keys and the spider webs and all of that, and even kind of like some of the upgrades that you can like focus on that in enemy defeats and perfect dodges and parries and all that, like fills up gadgets, and also kind of like this the cooldowns much quicker into like a combat system that from a fighting game perspective is all about kind of like the flow state, kind of like keeping a flow state of all the tools that kind of like going in a circle.
I hated perfect parrying though. Spider-Man is not a parrier. Exactly. He's a dodger.
He's a dodger, and that's what Paul was saying last week. Today is like, why did they add a parry button when they specifically said why they didn't add a parry the last game? Was because he's a dodger.
And he's Spider-Man. He has Spidey sense. He goes woo and gets away. He would not take a damage directly with a parry. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, and the parry definitely, like, in addition, it was a sequel. They needed to add like a new gameplay system, and so they had to add that. Like, and love it or hate it, is like they did tie a lot of the cooldowns of you kind of getting the parry, and even the fact, like, for example, the impact web. If you parry someone and then tap R1, boom, impact web, and it sends it. And it says so. They took criticism to heart of the original, that a lot of people were like, "There's a lot of win buttons here." Like, impact web is like an immediate like take down enemies. Trip mine is like immediate take down enemies. Web blossom, like one of the first abilities you can get from L3 and R3, is a literal win button. So they took let's take away the win button situation, but rework a lot of the functionality of these gadgets into like the L1 and R1, and obviously like, and that's a kind of a knowledge-based barrier to the user. There's people that prefer the versatility of having the tools and the gadget wheel, and there's others that like me because I was one that barely used the gadgets in the original one, because I felt at normal difficulty didn't need to use more than two. I had two, like I switched between impact web and the web bomb. And with the tap L1, you can like switch between both of them, and then doing dodges and all that. And my web blossom, I was like, that's all I needed to use. I barely used the gadgets.
The thing is, like you said, they call them win buttons, but he's Spider-Man. He's a superhero.
Yeah,
he should have win buttons.
Yeah,
he's not Batman. He's not like a regular guy just fighting things. He is a super-powered spider-human combo monster, and he should be able to just destroy random mooks on the street without any sort of an effort. Like, that is the Spider-Man thing. That's what's cool about Spider-Man, and what's different versus a more grounded hero like a Batman.
Yeah,
in that he has that power and he has the super intelligence, so he should just be able to overpower most of the basic enemies. And then the ones that he should struggle with are the super villains, or like the really decked out armor guys, like if Spider-Man fought Batman in some crazy mashup, like, he should struggle to fight Batman because he's super decked out in armor, and like those are the hard enemies. And so to have Silver Sable soldiers, like, they were strong dudes, like, that made sense. And I just felt like I liked the win button. I thought the win button was cool. I thought that it made more sense in universe.
Yes, and I feel like this is an example of finding ways of, sometimes you need to find like the feedback to see how you can improve. And it turns out the win button was like the most common criticism that they found that that's what they reacted to, into like more to me, like, what told me that a lot of people were not using gadgets, the fact that even in Miles Morales they pared it down to 4 by adding the abilities. So it's like from there you kind of like see where they were kind of like even that game took out win buttons and started adding cooldown, the more cooldown style gameplay. So to me, that's what I found interesting. And then, but what's funny is that I never had the problem with the gameplay. My problem with Spider-Man 2 always was that I found the storytelling very meandering.
I agree with that too. I do have the thing for me, like not to cut you off, is I think that there are gameplay and story issues with it. I have problems with both of them.
Yeah, gameplay I never had a problem, and I loved swinging and using the web wing. I feel like you really feel the improvement in traversal in 2 more compared to like when you just play one and Miles. Just moving around, like doing the random crimes, that's like really fun to do in 2. Story is like takes too long to get going. The middle section is dead weight because it's like Kraven the Hunter has its one motivation. It's cool knowing that he's hunting the villains, but he's killing them off screen. You don't see his might other than one weird time. Yeah, he just like answer. He's barely in it, and then like the excitement doesn't happen until you get the black suit. So there's kind of like a lot of like a wheel spinning in that game, and then when the black suit enters the fray, and then when Venom comes in, there's like a level of excitement that you kind of wish was always there in the game. Yeah, and the thing is that I was
just saying, do you remember the opening trailer, like the reveal trailer outside of like the quick grab when they actually showed the game and it was like Kraven and it like goes to New York City's map and it's like all these things. It's like you don't see any of it happen.
Yeah, and it's such a missed opportunity because that's where 2018 like what's funny is that to me like the middle sections of 2018 and 2 are the weakest part, though in opposite ways. Like the story of in the middle section of Spider-Man 2, it's a nothing burger because it's just crazy. It's just like the Kraven's last hunt at its most basic. You don't really learn anything other than Kraven has a terminal illness and he just wants to die. Like he literally just wants to die, not by his sickness, but by like a worthy opponent, and that's it. That's his entire character compared to Martin Lee in the 2018 game, which had the advantage of being a newer character because he hadn't shown up outside the comics. Because you're learning something new. It wasn't a traditional Spider-Man villain. It allowed Insomniac to add a lot of intrigue in the story they were telling in that middle section, despite the fact that in gameplay wise, that's probably pacing wise that game at its worst. But because the story was so interesting, you didn't mind that. In 2 is the opposite. There's nothing story wise worthwhile, but gameplay wise, there's some really exciting stuff that happens, especially around the time that you get the black suit. Yeah. And I still feel like in excitement, the third act of 2 is the most exciting of all of that because they really pump the metal to the metal in the final third of
it is. It's very exciting. I agree. I just wish that it was surrounded by
more excitement.
Better stuff. Yeah. Well, it's just better. Not even just more exciting, just better stuff. Yes. Like there's a quality drop for sure in 2 versus 1 that they kind of refined in that final act when it goes crazy.
And it makes you wish that the first two two thirds of that game had that excitement. It's why this was the hardest game to replay, because a lot of that is their story wise. Even in side quests, there are some really nice side quests early on, like especially when it comes to helping an old man. The 2 ones that you help, like the old man, are some of the best side quests that I've seen in a game this generation, because they're so tender and so they get the heart of Spider-Man, a hero for the people that looks for the
your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
And that's nailed perfectly. And then there's the 5 Brooklyn Academy missions that feel like they're like a spotlight for different social movements, and that was it. That one felt more like, why was this here, other than just virtue signal, because it doesn't add anything other to be like, oh yeah, we're Brooklyn Academy, and this is.
It doesn't teach you anything about Miles. Like I want like. Miles helps people. Okay, we knew that.
Exactly. At its core, it wasn't even anything about Miles. It was just about adding extra stuff to his friendly neighborhood thing that was very centered about that. But the focus of the side quest was more the social movements that it was kind of like highlighting.
And the other thing with it is like, maybe don't help your people, like don't like maybe 1 mission in the school that you attend, like not 5 missions,
not 5 of them
for the school that you attend. Like that's maybe not your smartest play there.
That is. I make the joke that was the SBI project of the game. That's where you see it the most. because there are other cool, like when you play as Haley, like Miles' sort of girlfriend.
Yeah,
How they, like,
that's a fun little thing. That's
yeah.
a really cool little piece.
Yeah, I thought they kind of handle like interestingly how a deaf character would kind of like perceive the world, and it worked with gameplay. I like that. It's just the Brooklyn Academy one was like, this is eye rolling, especially like we BIPOC artists are a piece of a flock and thing like this. So it's like, why? Like
yeah, I really enjoyed the Haley mission a lot more than I thought I would, because I saw people criticizing it because like they also criticized Mary Jane's stealth missions.
Yeah,
and
why
whatnot.
am I playing not a Spider-Man character? So
Yeah, but
like
I thought the Haley thing was creative. Like I don't know if I'd want a whole game as a deaf character, because that was kind of challenging to play as. But like that was a cool little experience to see. I really liked that part for sure.
And to me, like what bothers me about the Brooklyn Academy part is that I am one that I don't mind like social movements and be part of like a story of like or kind of like a maybe part of even your world, especially something like New York. I know that it's very progressive city and all that.
Yeah,
I just felt that the progressive side of things was handled better in Miles. When you meet like like the two girlfriends that are part of like Feast, that presented as matter of fact as it should be. It's
right.
like what people what like this social movement should fight for is for normalization, not just kind of like look what we're doing. It's like it just in two, it just felt a little too showy, and to me, it's like it felt less genuine, especially because they even got very specific representation things wrong, like the whole thing with the flag for Miles. And it's funny. Like, how do you screw up? Like putting the Cuba flag versus the Puerto Rico flag when your Miles Morales game nailed that. So it's like that is the kind of thing that you say if you want a virtue signal, like the social movements like so blatantly, and then getting that stuff like that wrong tells me a little bit more about how you really approach it, and that those are sort of the things that kind of are filled up in that first two halves of the game. And again, like I always like the gameplay side is the one thing that I always liked. The bugginess that I suffered with that game, where I kept getting soft lock.
I didn't have any major bugs like that.
I was so bad. I had bad luck. I still have videos of how bad it was for me. Like the Mary Jane stealth mission, where I had like guards completely break, and I could walk into them. Funny. I could have it walk into them, and it was like walking around. They wouldn't stare at me. It was like to me, it felt worse knowing that this is a Sony first party game, so you expect these games to be like more polished than it was. And I know it was like. And it was like Russian roulette. There were some people that the bugs were really bad, others were not as bad.
I don't remember any bugs in the game at all.
Yeah. And if we reference the podcast all as sacred symbols, Colin had no bugs, Chris was littered, and Dustin was kind of somewhere in between. So it was like it felt like depends on your PS5, like you would get like certain luck. And there was just like a certain instability that when I learned the game cost $300 million like late last year, it recontextualized it for me, because I was like, this game really cost that much, and it was the buggiest experience I had in a big game name. In a big name game of last year. That's why I called it one of my biggest disappointments of 2023. Playing it now, I still recognize 2018 as the better game. I like its story better. I like the gameplay of 2, me personally, as a fighting game, as some of the lesser technicality of fighting systems. I like the combat system of 2 better myself, though I understand, having recently replayed 2018 on the ultimate difficulty, a difficulty that actually pushes you to use everything. I understand kind of like why you lost, because they didn't balance the normal difficulty well, like they do now, where in normal difficulty in Spider-Man 2, you have to use everything. And I was like, I wish it has been the thing also in 1, that you felt like you needed to use all your tools. So I feel stronger about Spider-Man 2, but then we got the news that they're done. No DLC, no, like they're basically washing their hands, putting a PC port and moving forward.
Good. And I'm glad. It doesn't need more. It did not call for more. It did not leave it in a place to call. Like, you clearly, the only thing that was left open is the Wraith missions, which are like, continuing that story. But like, okay, do that in the next game. It's the Carnage stuff. Or do that in the Venom side.
I'm torn about like the no DLC thing, because unfortunately Spider-Man 2 now lives in the shadow of the leaks, of the Insomniac leaks, where that Insomniac confirmed were correct, that they were all true. So in the shadow of that leak, we know that they were planning 3 DLC parts: a B Quest, Carnage, and Into the Spider-Verse. If you platinum the Spider-Man 2, you know that there's a
Yeah,
Spider-Man, a Spider-Verse
the
tie-in.
Spider-Verse joke, yeah, with the
Yeah, right at the end. So it felt like they left a few threads like to be followed up upon. I always expect maybe this is how they're gonna follow it up with the Spider-Man 3 whenever that gets in. And knowing that that was out, to me, the only thing that sucks is the fact that they waited until the year anniversary to be like, oh yeah, we're not planning more content. I'm like,
at least we know. At least we're
yes,
not sitting there waiting.
yes, at least we know. I know there were a lot of people that were fans of this game that had been waiting, and we're hoping because, oh yeah, Horizon spent more than a year until it got its DLC. God of War Ragnarok also more than a year before it got its DLC. The Last
Yeah,
of Us
it was February, March, April. It was 14 months for
yeah,
Horizon.
14 months. Yeah, so it was like, oh yeah, full year. God of War Ragnarok also 14 months, also or 13 in this case because it released in December and Ragnarok was a November game. The Last of Us Part 2, 4 years later, got its roguelike mode. So it was like, you see all of that happen. Spider-Man 2018 had the 3 DLC packs that were not that great, but they had them.
I really like the DLC packs, though. I actually thought they were pretty good.
I like the Sable one, the third one. Then the middle one is like my least favorite, and I like the story implications before you got like the rug pull out of you and the Black Cat one. When you think that they actually had a kid together, and
I
like that.
I like Black Cat too. I'm sad that Black Cat was hardly into. I really like Black Cat. I wish she was in it more.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah. Yes. So in that context, I wish they had said from the very beginning because God of War 2018 did this. They were like, "This is the game. No, don't expect any DLC. Like, at least just be forthcoming." And I know that why they didn't say anything was because they were still planning on it. And I think my thought was that the game ballooned 300 million cost just for this one. They started to thinking what would be like better ROIs. We know based on the leaks that they're gonna do another Miles Morales style like middle game with Venom.
Yeah, because
it's like that game sold a shit ton. Like it sounded like so much.
It did.
So
it did for sure.
Yeah. So
it is good.
Yes, Spider-Man still at its core. It's still good. It's just 2 is like way more flawed than the first 3 games. Even though I feel like this is why I wanted to like play it. I feel like there was so much negativity being thrown at the game that I was like, I knew that I had my bug experience, but I really wanted to see if it was worth the vitriol. And to me, it's like it's still a better game than the vitriol Twitter will let you think, but it's not as great as the last one. I feel that's kind of like the real truth of Spider-Man 2. And to me, it's just sad that they PR blundered the roadmap they had planned of this game because I feel bad for the fans that were hoping for DLC because like, man, you really waited until the anniversary to then say, no, you're not getting any story content. It's like, you're just ensuring that Spider-Man 2 now feels very the lasting taste for many will be sour because you're like led them for an entire year without telling them anything other than just like releasing garbage suits. And one that costs $5.
The suits, I hate the suits in 2 are not good. They're not good suits. The suits in 1 are so much better than the suits in 2. I have to say, like you never got I used that Black Cat suit the whole game. The moment I got the Black Cat suit in 1, I used that Black Cat suit. Okay, I gotta ask you a question though now, Alex, because a little while ago you said this was the hardest game to replay. So is this harder to replay than God of War Ragnarok?
Actually, Ragnarok was harder to replay. Like if I'm actually really honest, because I feel like the doldrums of Ragnarok were slightly longer, whereas I feel like Spider-Man 2, the gameplay side of things, really, Spider-Man 2 is just so much fun to play that its storytelling like woes of the first 2/3 and it being a shorter game also is easier to finally get to the excitement than it is with Ragnarok because Ragnarok is a big odyssey. It's a 50-hour game where the first 10 hours are really rough, but the other 40 are really exciting. So it's like Ragnarok has a much bigger hump to go over, but it's like more than consistently fun after you get over that hump. Spider-Man 2 starts so freaking awesome, then slams the brakes so hard. And then when you're like stuck in that kind of like doldrum story-wise, because it's like, why are we wasting time when we know that there's excitement stuff coming? Then like once you get to that excitement, it's like, yeah, this is what I've been waiting. It sucks that we had to wait for that. They're interesting sequels when it comes to like replay, but I feel like I would replay more Spider-Man 2 than I would do Ragnarok. Ragnarok is like a bigger odyssey to go through. So
I'll probably get to Ragnarok. Maybe I'll aim to get it done next year sometime because right now Dragon Age is life when it comes out in a week, and then I do want to play Metaphor at some point, which I know you're going to talk about in a minute.
Just briefly.
Metaphor, I'm tempted to wait to play Metaphor until whatever re-release of Metaphor Atlas does in like a year and a half or
Yes.
2 years comes out. I'm very tempted because I've got enough to play. I may not wait, but I'm tempted to wait there.
And they've set the precedent. Persona
Yeah.
5,
Oh yeah,
Persona
all the
5
time.
Royal. So it's like
Yeah, 4 golden. You know,
yeah, P3 portable.
right? Or yeah, and Fez, Fez, all of it. So yeah, I'm
Mhm.
tempted on that. But yeah, I'll probably maybe I'll try to squeeze it in sometime. 2018 is whatever for God of War. It's good. It's a
Mhm.
good game.
Yeah.
I was not like, yeah, the next God of War. Like God of War has always just existed. I think I mentioned on here before that I played all the God of Wars one time, in 3 days. I played 6 games. The Greek sextology. So I'll try and get to it next year. It just depends on what comes out.
Yes,
so.
I still prefer 2018 than Ragnarok, but that's more a personal me thing.
Sure. I think most people do. It seems to be the consensus there. And I think most people, I don't know why, I think most of the gaming populace prefers 2018 Spider-Man to Spider-Man 2, but Spider-Man 2 has higher reviews for whatever reason. I don't know why.
Yes. From that perspective, I feel like when I look at those reviews, I'm like, these feel so overly inflated by the tiny sites, because the bigger sites went lower.
Yeah.
IGN gave it an 8. GameSpot gave it an 8. Like,
what season gaming give it? Let's find out.
9.5.
Who did the review for it? Was
Eric?
Yeah, it was Eric. Oh, Eric.
Yeah,
we gotta scold next time we're on his show. We gotta scold him.
Yes, that game is an 8.5. If I were to like score, I feel 8.5 is the right score for that one. And, and 2018 is like 9.
I exactly agree. I do agree. I think I would say I could go between an 8 and an 8.5 depending on
the day
on the day that I'm thinking about it. But I do agree that 2018 is a solid 9. It is a solid 9. And Spider-Man 2 is in the 8s. It is in that 8 range. I agree with you there.
Yeah, because that's what I found funny. I was like, why did Spider-Man 2 score so high? And then when you went to look, it's like
no idea.
Yeah, more places reviewed it, and and tinier sites like really skyrocketed that score. But like the more like
we got to give Eric a good whipping.
Yeah.
And who's got a cane?
Yeah. So at least like similar to what I do with Ragnarok, I'm glad that replaying it, I know that game is not as bad as Twitter will make you feel it is.
Yeah.
But they're just not as good as their superlative 2018 versions.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like you can make an argument for Ragnarok being better than 2018 because God of War 2018 was a very specific point in time where live services were being like the kind of single player that is not like so like we're getting so many like really good single player games. I feel like God of War 2018 came in at the right time where it's like, man, at a time where we had the microtransactions, open world, like live service things, and look at God of War, like being the complete package. And I feel that helped prop that up, especially it helped prop that up for me. So because that one was the reuse I needed. For a while, I call it my favorite game of all time. I don't think that anymore, but I still think it's a top 10 really great game. So
sure.
Yeah. But. So and then just briefly, I want to touch about Metaphor because I had said that I had only played like 1 or 2 hours of the demo, and I didn't like I was like, I'm gonna wait until the game is out, and then by the time that the game came out, I was in my Spider-Man bender, and I talked openly now. I need to be in the mood to play. I don't want to force something if I'm not like in the mood, and that's became more of a thing with when Astrobot came out. When I was still trying to platinum Rebirth, that when Astrobot came out, I was like so excited for Astrobot. I started playing. I was like, I don't want to play it. I need to finish this. So it's like I need to really set my mind because it's like if I'm all constantly distracted, I feel like I'm just not gonna give a game its due. So because of that bender, I was like, the Metaphor came out and I didn't touch it. Yeah, I finished Spider-Man 2. Went through the Alan Wake 2 thing. Got a #redacted code for a game that I'll be reviewing for middle in November, which is pretty exciting. I can't say what it is, but you'll hear about it really soon.
Yeah.
I was like, I kind of want to get into now this mood, and I started playing more of Metaphor, and I was like, the vibe of this thing is so cool.
Yeah, it really is.
The music's so cool.
Yeah.
Paul sent me a screenshot that he follows an artist that he said that if you're really intentional, you can get this done in 40 hours instead of the 80 that were like being promoted. So I was like, that automatically makes it more exciting for me. Like,
did you see Colin Moriarty post on Twitter? You saw
that's insanity. So he printed 30
but you know
pages.
what? It's not insanity because I am kind of tempted to ask him where he got it from, just out of curiosity.
It's Power Picks.
Is it Power Picks? But it's a non-spoiler Power Picks
Yes.
version? Because
He always does the non-spoiler Power Picks like trophy guides.
yeah, because I feel like Power Picks is not the best at spoilers. I think Power Picks is super spoilery sometimes, but I never tried their Persona ones because I never played Persona games. So maybe they have
he tried doing Persona 5
Golden.
the Golden through his guides. So
I remember he messed up one thing and then quit at the last part because but
that it's so funny.
It is crazy. You're right. It is crazy to do, but I kind of understand it if you want. The thing is, I don't know if I want to platinum in a game until I've started playing the game. So I wouldn't want to start a game with the intention of the platinum.
Yeah. To me, like I wouldn't be that psychotic about doing it how he's doing it, because you have to play that game twice for the platinum. Because usually
do you have to? Is it required?
Yeah, you have to play it twice. So
I don't want to know why. I don't know why. I don't want to know.
I don't know why either, but apparently that's always been a requirement. So that's why I'm like, you know what? I'm just winging it. Like I'm just gonna wing it with this experience. And I know like one reason why you would want to do it with a guide afterwards is that just like Persona, it's easy to miss
afterwards for sure. No questions about afterwards.
It's like Persona. I know that there's some social links that if you miss on quest lines and all that, and I feel that was one of the reasons why he wanted to do it that way. It's just to me like I like my first experience to be kind of like, what can I do me as a player? How far can I? That's how I did it with Rebirth. And then after I did all of that, I was like, okay, time to look for guides and see what I need to do for the rest.
I'm in the middle. I'll look up guides in the middle of a first playthrough if I need to be cautious about something, like because I don't want to miss things. And so like in Rebirth, you know how there's like you get into chapter, when you first get into the Golden Saucer Desert area, and
chapter 9.
Yeah, when you first get into there and you're like, wait, why am I only 2 out of 4 on this thing? And I'm like,
relics,
it's like I gotta look, I gotta figure it out.
And they tell you, I did the same thing because I was like, did something bug? Like, am I missing something? I looked it up. It's like, no, you're gonna continue chapter 12. Cool, moving on.
Exactly.
I did. But
that's why I had to look up the Mafia 3 thing, because there was no story. I'm like, what's happening? Where'd my story go?
Yeah, it's always good to know because that way you don't waste time on a bug.
Yeah.
So with Metaphor, the thing that I really, really love is just how swift it is compared to like how quickly you get to really cool stuff, especially what they do with hearts. All I'll say, and that
I love that. I love that.
So hard. It just goes so hard into the thing. Like the battle music goes so hard. They're like the vibes that I'm getting of this is like this feels like a Final Fantasy game by the way of Atlas. It kind of has that sense of grandeur, that kind of sense of adventure, and that's why what I needed, because Shibuya, Japan, high schoolers with weird themes. It was like it was not enough to keep me interested with Persona.
Yeah,
as great as those games were.
That's why I never played them, is because like I own 5 Royal on PS4. I just never played because I'm like, I'm not super excited about the idea of just playing, a high school. Like that may be fun sometimes, but it just doesn't, the setting and what the game is doesn't add up to me so much. Like, I don't know, I'll probably try it at some point, but it just, in terms of like my desire to play it, as like, I'd rather run around a high school in Yokohama beating up high schoolers as Yagami and Lost Judgment. That sounds more fun because I'm not in there the whole time. That's not the whole game. It's just a huge part of the game. That's having a 35-year-old man beat high schoolers up. It's fun.
That's what Yakuza just feels more interested. If I ever want to do like something like that in the RPG realm, that feels more like the way I want to lean in, more than the high schoolers of Persona. But that's what I love about Metaphor, feeling like, hey, if you feel like high school was not like your thing, what about if we carried this style into like a fantasy setting? And I feel that works so well. And with the theme, like, this is a really wild game to come out in this year of all the years. The kind of story it tells, the kind of themes that it deals with, how like so blatant it is, and like some of the things that it's saying, but it doesn't feel like it's preaching at you.
Because it's a story. It's a story that was written, and then everything around the story is what's happening, and that's what we had that discussion briefly in the Season Gaming Discord, that some people were disagreeing over a tweet that Hogue had made, and I'm like, no, it makes perfect sense, because if a story is written and then this is the story you want to tell, and these are the things that happen, that's great. But a lot of times people will say, these are the things we want to make people see, and then this is the story you're going to write. And you can't do it that way. You have to write, I have a good idea for a story, and then everything else flows naturally from it. And that seemed, I only did the demo and I got to the point where you could start the first real dungeon when you've got your party and everything. Like I stopped there because I'm like, I'm not going to play anymore. I don't need like,
yeah, I made it past there. So.
Yeah, it tells you in the demo, it's like the game is going to stop in the middle of the dungeon. I'm like, then I'm not going to play you. I'm not going to start you in the middle of the dungeon. Then, like, why would I go midway through a dungeon before a game starts? So I stopped beforehand. But just in that little bit that I saw, I was like, oh, this is a world that they built, and then they had this story that was really cool, and then this is how it's. Yeah.
Yes. No. Then that's the thing that I love. That it's like it's so deep. It's such a deeply political game, but it feels like. It's not politics meant to be like direct commentary on American politics and all that, but it's just kind of like more societal politics that feel like you can. Is the kind of thing that if you analyze it kind of like from analytical allegory, you can kind of see like some of the where those allegories kind of like come from real, where you can be like, oh, this would be like what is dealing here may be like associated with this thing that's happened in the real world, but it's not being so literal. And preaching about kind of like it's the badness or goodness of specific things. You just feel like something that feels congruent to the world of metaphor. And I feel like we have a lot, like I feel like nowadays a lot of this like big topics feel so blatant in mirroring the real world that can get into preachiness. And I understand why some people, like not the grums, not those grifters that are there that say everything as well, but some people that want a little bit more escapism. I feel like we have lost a little bit of that nuance of seeing a writer incorporate really thought-provoking themes that through allegory you can kind of see how they connect to our real world, but it doesn't feel like a direct correlatory. And I feel like metaphor reminds me of that so well. Like,
that's why I'm excited for Dragon Age.
Yes, I want to see how they handle that.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. You know, like you said, they have these things, and then they're not beating you over the head with it. They exist. It exists, and that's enough. It doesn't have to be the focus of every single scene. And that, to bring it back to the earliest part of the conversation about Life is Strange 2, is my problem with Life is Strange 2. It felt like they were trying to beat you over the head that this is what it's going to have to be like, and this is what it has to be. And I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. That's not the story. That story does not flow logically, and I don't want games to do that. And that's why I am excited for Dragon Age, because as a series and franchise that Dragon Age is, and a studio that BioWare has always been, I've never felt beaten over the head by messages of any sort in their games. They're just fun worlds, and that's exciting.
And whatever series happens is like makes sense within those worlds.
It has always done that. Even in their weirdest, worst games, it always does that, and that's why I'm excited, and why I'm happy to see that continue. I'm expecting that to continue. I could be wrong. Anyone could be wrong about anything. It could turn out that they're going to just smash you in the face with things that don't make any sense. But just because it's there doesn't mean it's smashing you in the face with it.
Yeah, and that's where like these conversations have kind of gotten so exhausting in 2024 because but from either side.
I agree. Side. I agree. Like Yasuke in Shadows. Like, is it weird that they have a black samurai as the focus of the first Assassin's Creed game in Japan? Yeah, that's a little bit weird. Do I expect them to beat me over the face with that while I'm playing it? I'm like, no, not really.
Because it's Ubisoft, the whole people. They don't really beat you over the head. They just kind of put things.
They tell you a fun story. They tell you a fun romp, and it's usually pretty well written, and it's always really well acted. Unless you're Alexios and you should have been Cassandra. Like aside from little weird things like that, like their stories are never trying to pound you over the head with anything. Even a story like Watch Dogs 2, which is a hacker story set in San Francisco of all places.
Yes. That game feels so honest on the tone of its city. Like it's so representative of its city.
That's exactly right. And I don't, as much as I will probably only play as Yasuke when required to, because I like ninjas more than I like samurais.
Oh yeah,
that's a personal preference. I played as Evie way more than I played as Jacob because I like the stealth side of this thing. But it's there, it's cool, whatever. You chose to put that in there. It's an interesting choice. We'll see what you do with it. But just because it's in there doesn't mean you're going to do anything crazy with it, because we haven't played it yet.
Exactly.
I can't. If I go in there and it turns out that this isn't Naoe's story and it's really Yasuke's story, I'm gonna be like, okay, that was a strange choice. Why are we having Yasuke's story in Japan?
Yeah,
that doesn't.
When Naya would be the
right,
the like the more direct correlatory for like your for your setting. It's like it's a person from your setting.
Exactly. That would be a strange decision, and I would see what they say and how they go about it, and what kind of themes they throw in there, but. My goodness, people, it's the marketing. We've seen nothing. They canceled the preview event, for goodness sake. Calm down.
Yeah, that's what I tell you. Yeah, it's like we're not allowed to like react to the actual text. Like we're all. It's like reactionaries making assumptions.
It's like it's like, oh no, Dragon Age doesn't have D-cup women in it. It's like, that's a strange choice for BioWare to make, because there are plenty of heavy set people who like video games. They should probably have that, but also they don't have to. You know, oh no, Dragon Age has top surgery scars. There's been an established trans character in this universe in Inquisition. Why do you care? You haven't played it. If suddenly how does
it affect you, right?
Right. How does it affect it? The thing is, we don't know how it affects the game yet, because we haven't played the game. If all of a sudden Dragon Age goes from a fighting god story to a trans rights propaganda game, then you can complain about it, or you know, an anti-fat person game because they don't have, you know, heavy set characters or big breasted women. Complain about it after you've played
after we played and seen if they do those things. So which is why, like, for example, worthy criticism Spider-Man 2, like what it does with the Brooklyn Academy is the side of things, like that is something that is like, that's how it feels. And I felt being like, oh yeah, this just exists to say that we wanted to represent very blatantly this thing that we didn't need to do before when we had these kind of characters. That I feel is what's being lost. Like a lot of reactionaries are reacting already like to everything instead of properly analyzing something. And that's why like it's so tiring from the people that is all about representation and everything, and so people from the reactionaries are like, we're gonna criticize everything just because people exist. Or things like that. And that's where I've lost.
So annoying. It's so annoying.
I've lost my marbles, and it blocked so many people and muted so many people this year, because to me, like, this has been the year that I see, oh yeah, this is DEI woke, so boom, muted or deleted. Like as soon as I see that, because those are just like the dog whistles for me, that I know what you're trying to say, like without saying. So I was like, I don't need that in my life. I don't need you. Boom, delete.
I just want to play the game. I want to see what the games are. Let me even if I'm not the one playing, if you've played the game and you say, oh, this is what I experienced. Oh, thank you for telling me what you experienced. I appreciate it. That's what the review is for. That's what podcast conversations are for.
Exactly.
But you and I have seen the same trailers here, and you may have seen more trailers than me for something like Dragon Age, because I haven't seen anything in like 2 months for it. But
do you watch the launch trailer from today, by the way?
Do you think I watched it? No. I did not watch it. I did make my girlfriend watch it. I was like, babe, I want you to watch this trailer. She's like, can I do it tomorrow?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, can you do it today, please? And she was like, why? I was like, please, because it just came out today. And she's like, fine. And so I put it on for her.
Yeah.
And then I ran into the other room. And then when she was done, I was like, what'd you think? And she was like, it has really good music. That was the first thing she said. I was like, it's Hans Zimmer. It's the guy that works with Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, it's so wild that they got Hans Zimmer for a Dragon Age game.
I know, it's amazing. I'm so excited for that.
I did watch that launch trailer, and I thought it was a good trailer. And it's something that it's so funny that this feels like a great segue to like the one topic that I really wanted to like.
Let's hit it.
Since you were here, like
let's hit the main topic.
It's like a gut check on Dragon Age, like 40, like a 10-year in the making thing. You're being like, so it's so close to being released. So well, think about that. Like, you're gonna be playing a new Dragon Age game 10 years later, 9 years after the Trespasser DLC that people say that it's so important that people experience, because it's, I feel it's building upon that. And I never seen a game like just this year go from its reveal trailer that was like, they ruined Dragon Age, to its gameplay reveal, which was like the uncut 15-minute thing that was like, oh, that actually looks really good. Okay. Then we got the state of play extended boss like look. That one was like, this looks bad. Vibes went down. Then we got the preview be like, oh no, wait, this may be their Mass Effect, the Dragon Age Mass Effect movement. It's like the positivity. And now the launch trailer, a lot of people are gonna see, a lot of people say this is actually pretty good. So it's like, it's been like the roller coaster has been real just this year. And you're like, you've gone on a much longer roller coaster because like you've been waiting for this thing since it was originally like teased in 2018, right?
Yep. I remember sitting in my basement apartment in Brooklyn on my bed alone watching this Game Awards trailer reveal. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like waiting. I'm just watching the Game Awards, waiting for something, expecting, hoping, because it'd been, 4 years since the release and 3 years since Trespasser at that point. And I'm just like, what's going to happen? And then it shows up. And I just like sat up, shot up, and I put my arms up and I screamed and I fell back down.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm good until it releases. And I meant that because, and I had a conversation with Hogue about it back then because I've known Hogue, on Twitter at least for years. And I had said, I was like,
especially as a lawyer, it would make sense that you've known, followed him.
Right. So I was just like, I'm good. He's like, I think he said something like, that's not coming soon. Why show it or whatever? Because he is the very much, short reveal. Don't tell us till it's ready to come out. But I am not that. I much prefer knowing a game exists. And the reason for that is because the games industry is so secretive that if you don't know something if something's not announced, you may as well not even consider it to be happening. I just need to know that it's happening, and then you're good. Drip feed me updates, and I'm fine. Exactly. So people who are like, oh, the Splinter Cell game that was announced all those years ago, and we haven't heard anything. I'm like, but they haven't said it was canceled. The most egregious example of not saying anything and then it just vanishes is probably like Agent from the Rockstar or Wild from Ubisoft. It's not a common occurrence.
Don't remind me of Agent. Gosh, that would have been such a cool thing from Rockstar. Gosh.
Yeah, so it's not that common of an occurrence. If someone announces something, you usually either hear that it either comes out or you hear that it's canceled. So you know what's going on for the most part in my experience. So yeah, I've been waiting a really long time for Dragon Age here.
Yeah.
And it really is my favorite franchise. I'm so invested. I've read all the novels. I have the Rook's Coffer edition pre-ordered for the collectors. I also got the Varantium packs, which is like the second fancy edition. This is like $40 versus like the 100.
You're in the tank. You're in the tank in Dragon Age as I can ever imagine anyone being that I know of.
Yeah, for sure.
So now 10 years, like almost 10 years of you waiting for this like new Dragon Age content for you. What would it need to do like for it to be like make the 10-year wait worth it for you? Like what would be like something specific for you that would be like, if they do this, it would have made like this extended like wait something worth it, like at least for you as a fan?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's anything that they can do to make it worth waiting 10 years in that fashion, because whatever they do, I just want them to have done. I want them to do what they were going to do. It just happened to take 10 years. There's nothing, I can't imagine them doing anything so fancy or so amazing that it would say, oh yeah, they should have waited 10 years to do this. It's not like Elder Scrolls 6 where Todd Howard's like, oh, we just don't have the technology yet. We're waiting for the technology. And then here's the technology. Like, that's not what this is. That's not the kind of thing. So for me, all they need to do is just land the plane that they took off, in Inquisition and, in Trespasser. And I don't want them to close the story. I know some people say, oh, they should just, conclude it so that it's got a solid conclusion. But they've said in interviews, like, we're giving you a whole bunch of answers, but there's always more questions we're opening up, because they know that they don't want it to end, because they know that it's a good, it's a good setting. It's an amazing franchise and it sells really well. So I don't think I have a specific answer of something that would make it worth a 10-year wait, but I think that whatever they are doing will be satisfying enough that I won't have regretted waiting, at least.
Yes. Now remind me, like, did Inquisition leave like threats open, or the threats open were more the Trespasser DLC? Because I don't remember anything like. I remember Inquisition feeling pretty well rounded by the time
Inquisition left.
Right?
Inquisition did leave a thing open. I don't know how much I'm supposed to tell you. Like, how much do you want me to spoil here? But
feel free. It's been 10 years, and that's the thing. Like, because we need to know like how prepare like something like that would like connect to Veilguard. So go for it.
Yeah. So at the end of Inquisition, Solus, who's been your companion, has disappeared. Right after you beat the final boss of the game, he's just like gone. You're like, where did he go? Oh no, we should try to find him. And then it goes to a cutscene after the credits of Solus talking to Flemeth, also known as Mythal, at that point, and like hugs her, and then she like looks like she dies and then goes away, and he's like absorbed her. And so that's the question, is like, what was that? What happened there? You don't really know what happened, what he took. And then you get into Trespasser, and then Trespasser has the big reveal of Solus being the Dreadwolf and all of that stuff. So yeah, so there was a thing that was left open, a little bit left open, that Trespasser answered. Trespasser kind of answered that question of what was a little bit of what was going on there. And then you got the big mystery cracked open of like, what is happening now?
And the subtitle, the Dreadwolf, that this game had kind of comes from Trespasser, right? That was kind of like the implication when you had that subtitle.
So I'm actually super curious, because they've never explained why the title was called Dreadwolf as one word, and the Dreadwolf is two words in the canon. So I'm curious if they ever explain why they had named it one word originally. But yeah, the Dreadwolf is Solus, and so Solus was going to be the main goal of Dragon Age 4, was supposed to be hunting down Solus originally. You were going after Solus, and then obviously time passed, things changed, so they changed the plot so that you actually open up, as the gameplay demo revealed, finding Solus as he's about to complete his journey of what he was trying to do. And so that's why they renamed it, is because you're no longer hunting Solus because you found him at the start of the game. It's almost like this should have been Dragon Age 5 if they hadn't if they'd made Dragon Age 4 Dreadwolf. If they made Dragon Age Dreadwolf, then they could have made this. But yeah, so it's interesting in that regard. But I do think that it's a good name change. I still like Dreadwolf as a name better, but if that's not the plot, they
it roll of the tongue easier than the Veilguard.
DAD.
Because sometimes I know it's the Veilguard, and sometimes
the Veilguard,
and I always like misspell as Veilheart.
Yeah, everyone calls it, and no one says the Veilguard though. Everyone just says Veilguard, or they abbreviate it as DAV instead of DATV, which fair enough. But yeah. So I'm so excited for 1 week from today, less than a week really, because it releases at noon Eastern time digitally for everyone, and I'm waiting for my physical copy to get here, so I won't be playing until the physical copy arrives.
I'll be doing the digital version.
I got the fancy version coming from GameStop and everything, so I got it all, and that'll be cool.
The review embargo lifts on the 28th, so we know that's this Monday, so that's 3 days early, not a full week early. So it's not like if it was a full week early, that's full confidence, but I would still say 3 days before.
I think 3 days has become the standard more than a full week. Yeah,
that's still like some level of confidence, so that at least should kind of like say that at least they feel some confidence in it.
I think so.
To you, what would be like if you were being realistic with what you've seen, the vibe check, since this is a god vibe check, what do you think this thing scores in the Metacritics and the Open Critics? If you were if you were to throw out, like, based on words being said on previews, the things you've seen in the trailers and all that.
Right. So that's the trick is I haven't seen. So the last thing I saw was when they did their basic gameplay demonstration of the warrior class, and they announced, and they had like some kind of big first act spoilers, and then I was like, okay, I'm done at this point. Like, I didn't need to see any of that.
You're sold.
I mean, I was sold 10 years ago. I was sold 15 years ago when Origins came out. Like, I've been sold forever on Dragon Age, so I never need to be sold on it. They have my eternal money forever playing. But in terms of what I think, like, my actual knowledge of what they've shown is so limited. So just based on what I did see, the tiny bit I saw in the previews, I think it's got a chance to do really, really well, because it is BioWare. And if they do nail it, I think it has that chance to hit that 90 Metacritic. I mean, Inquisition's an 89, I think.
Yeah, I can check for you. Yeah.
I think Inquisition's an 89. I think that Origins is a 92. And I think that even Dragon Age 2 is like an 89 or a 90.
Yeah, I think that 2 was the lowest, but let me double check for you.
It's the most disliked, but I think it's still scored really well. So
actually 79.
Is that on Metacritic, or is that on
Metacritic? Yeah.
Okay, well, so which platform though? Because Metacritic breaks it down by platform. Don't forget.
79, 360 with the most reviews. PC 82, PS3
there you go.
82. Yes.
Yeah. See, I was thinking of the PC and the PS3 because I never played anything really on 360. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, like mid 80s or mid to low 80s, low end 80s. That's still a good score for a game. It's still like, in the 8s.
Yeah, so for like context, Origins was 91 PC,
Yep.
PS3 87, and Xbox 360 86. Makes sense because the PC version is so different to the console versions also. So
Not a little different.
at least more like in the way that it was laid out and you can control it. I feel like
Oh yeah, yeah,
that was
true.
there was a difference. So obviously 2 was a more uniform between all those 3 systems, and I already told you it was a 79 with the most reviews on 360 and 82 on PC and PS3. Then Inquisition was 85 PC, 85 Xbox, and 89 on PS4 with the most
89
reviews.
That's the one I know.
Yes. And the one that got the most reviews here was the PC version with 45 critic reviews, and the PS4 version was 43 critic reviews. And there no reviews on the PS3 and 360 versions that were not good. Those versions were not good on that one. So at least the last game was that in that 89 to 85 like range.
Yeah.
So
I would not be surprised if it hit that same number, if it hit that 89 number. I obviously want it to get like a 10. I always want to get like the highest score. What matters most is probably 3 things. What matters most is how do they handle the actual story itself, the overall story? Do they do what they need to do? How is the drastic shift in gameplay and combat and away from the tactical, and this is more away from tactical than even 2 was, so it's how is the shift overall and the reduction in party members and the lack of direct control over their movement, like how does that how does that end up in the long run? How is the technical side of things? Is it buggy? Is it balanced? That's the trick. And I am glad that it's on Frostbite over Unreal right now, because Unreal has had so many tech issues that
with the shader compilations on PC and the stutters, the current consoles, the low image quality because of them wanting to use the nanite tools and all that for that are like the thing that make Unreal Engine 5 cool, like with lighting. But it means like resolution has to be like sacrificed. That's why the Pro will probably be like a good machine for UE5's current version.
So I'm excited to see. I think that I mean, I don't like Frostbite because I think it really hamstrung a lot of Inquisition's plans originally, but I think that they've had enough time and enough experience having made Inquisition and Andromeda and Anthem all in Frostbite, that the basics of the engine are understood. And I know that they're shifting back to Unreal for Mass Effect 5 when it comes out, but
or whatever it's called. And I feel like, to me personally, I feel like they're making a game that should be tailored more towards Frostbite than Inquisition was. It's more actiony. There's gonna be more linear and all that. Like Inquisition and Andromeda's big problems with Frostbite was the fact that engine cannot handle like the big environments super well. And formations and things like that.
And I want to make it clear, this still has big environments. It doesn't have the open zone nature of like the hinterlands, like Inquisition. But if you think back on Origins, or if you think back on 2, those were pretty much just hallways. You were just going down hallways with some exploration and a little bit here and there. You could explore the deep roads a little bit, or you could explore different parts of the forest. But those were very straight linear games. So this is a shift away from Inquisition, back a little bit more to the Origins 2 style, but it doesn't have the repetitive environments of 2, and it's newer and more modern, and it does still have openness and side quests and all of those things that you come to know and expect in an RPG like this. And so I think it has the potential to be really incredible outside of the hardcore fan base. I think it does. It's just I haven't played it. I can't say whether it does. If I'm giving a number score, I think that Bitcast and their numbers of like 82 and 79
81 to 77 are the and 79 is like the middle.
I was like, I think those are ridiculously low. I think that this has a solid shot. If I'm gonna put a number on it, I would probably give it that 89, that same level as Inquisition, if I had to put a number on it. I'm hoping for better. I think it could definitely be better. It could be worse. I don't think there's any chance it gets down to a low 80s or a 70 number. I don't think that's possible, but it could go down to an 85, somewhere in there. But I would say an 89 is confident, is a comfortable level, because I think that's right around where Dragon's Dogma ended up in the end, was somewhere around there, if memory serves. I think that ended up at like an 87.
86.
Or something.
86. It was like an 86, and I feel that game is one of the
87. It's 87. I have it
actually 87.
Right,
okay, sweet.
Yeah, on OpenCritic. I don't know about Metacritic.
I was looking on Metacritic. That's 86 there, 87 OpenCritic.
Yeah.
I was like looking just at the meta, just because think about it as think about the Veilguard kind of as a follow-up to their last 2 games, which Mass Effect Andromeda was 71 PS4, 72 PC, and Xbox 176.
It was buggy.
And Anthem was a 65 Xbox 154 PS4 and 59 PC. Like it was
not buggy, but it was not great technically. It was kind of chuggy, and also it had a bad story. I actually like Anthem play wise. I think it was fun to play, but it was
gameplay wise, it was fun.
It was just not BioWare. That's why I said the story. You notice when I listed those 3 things, I said the gameplay has to work, but it has to fit. It has to be done well, but it doesn't have to be amazing. The story was the first thing I said because that's what BioWare is known for. That is what is most important to the people when they're playing a BioWare game, is that it has a comfortable story.
Yeah, and Andromeda and Anthem whiffed it both in story, so that hurt a lot.
I think Anthem whiffed it more than Andromeda did, but yes.
There's fun to be had in Andromeda, and it was still a traditional BioWare story. It's just like the way that it was written, it just didn't have like the weight and like the gravitas of the Mass Effect trilogy. It just felt it just felt like a lower stakes. And just from what I've seen of Veilguard, just writing wise, at least I'm not getting MCU vibes, like at least from the original trailer.
Other than that stupid trailer,
that did. So at least it felt.
But you know what? I was just gonna say, you know what? I have to give that trailer credit. That trailer is the reason I'm on this podcast.
Yes.
There's
always
sparked me.
Yeah, there's always reasons. And I tell you, the trailer that I saw today was like, that was a good trailer. I remain like skeptical until on the 28th. I wake up that day, I go into the sites and
31st.
On the 28th for the review embargo.
Oh, the embargo. Sorry, yeah.
Because that would be like, if to me it has to be like this. If it reviews above an 80, I'm like, I applaud because I know where BioWare has been the last decade. So like a lot of the crew that made that Inquisition is like, this is a new kind of BioWare, and this has been a 3 times restarted projects. It's not like we're not getting the like 10-year product here. We're getting like, this is like the 3rd version that they have been like working on, like the scrapped one from 2014 to 2018.
More Joplin and Morrison, and we're both, I mean, Morrison was like, Joplin was like canceled, and then Morrison was the multiplayer version, and they just reworked. They took all the multiplayer out and they reworked the whole thing. So I don't think they ever gave it another new code name. But let me close the topic on by saying this. And the reason I have confidence in this more so than anything than other people may, and also 2 things I want to say. One, people who are saying the game is not selling well in pre-orders need to stop talking. Because EA in its investor call said that it was tracking along with what it expected. It's been in the top 5 on PlayStation pre-orders since
I checked today
for weeks and weeks and weeks, and like for over a month. It has been, I think it's actually been like 2 months. It's been in the top 5 on PlayStation pre-orders, and it's gone up, and now it's in the top 12 on Steam overall. So stop thinking it's not selling well, because it doesn't make any sense. You're just spreading a crazy narrative that you don't have any basis for. You're just talking vibes. So that's one. But the other thing I want to say is the reason I have confidence in this is because, as someone who's been involved in the community and who reads the Twitters and who watches the YouTube videos and whatnot, I have to say that the people who have been involved, who were a part of the Dragon Age Community Council, they are the people who know this stuff better than anyone else. Anyone else. And they helped this get made. They helped give their input 2 different times. The Dragon Age Council was brought to BioWare to play the game in early testing. They played the first act. They played only the first act, from what I understand. I don't think they've ever played in detail more. And they had given their direction and their input. And the community of BioWare fans is the one kind of community that you probably want to listen to, because honestly, some of them probably know the lore better than the devs do. And they probably know the story better.
That's BioWare. That's kind of like BioWare fandom in general. It's like
it is,
and it's well earned, because like they made their fan base through like their intricate storytelling and their amazing character and character development and all of that. So it's like, that's why people feel like so invested in it. So that it makes sense why you would want to do it. And I have to give BioWare credit for this one. It's like, I have never seen them like be so meticulous and wanting to get this one right. It feels like it's
they
like,
have to.
They have to, because their last 2 games bombed, like critically and also commercially, one would say. Because remember, Mass Effect was put on ice because it undershot also in sales and in reviews, and Anthem got
Yeah.
killed. So they
Yep,
have that.
they had to do the Asari, or not the Asari, the
The
Quarian
DLC got
ship
scrapped.
DLC, and it got scrapped in DLC, and they did it in like a book or something on the side, to tell the story. But yeah, like they are putting all of their time and their effort behind this. The people who they brought in to make sure it fit the storyline and fit what needed to be done are the people who know it best. And yeah, a lot of people say, don't listen to the fans. You can't listen to the fans of things. That may be true in general because the fan base of lots of things are crazy people.
Yeah.
But the BioWare fans, in my experience, having interacted with them, having spoken with a number of these people and having acquaintanceships with a few of the creators, they are
what makes
they are what we
great.
want. So whatever the game's media ends up thinking about the game, I am more confident that the game's going to be loved by the fans, and that's really what matters, because the fans are who buy BioWare games, and the fans are who should be the ones catered to the most. And then if they can bring in more people to even increase sales, Dragon Age Inquisition having sold 12 million lifetime is a huge number for a game like that. I think we're okay. BioWare people, BioWare fans, I think we're okay. We've got 1 week. We can take a deep breath and don't lose your mind.
Yeah,
like I am.
Yeah, and just to kind of conclude in my on my side there.
Yeah, please.
I want this game to be great because as I was having this conversation 2 weeks ago with Paul about like has 2024 being a dry year for video games. I'm drowning in so many goddamn video games that I cannot ever say like there's a good faith argument saying that this has been a dry year in general, though. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars say, there's what I said is true from a certain point of view. Japan has been feeding a lot of people that want games. Like it has been the year of Japan. Western games, SOL. Like games made by Western studios, this has been like a really bad year for Western developed games, and for people that are so minded into only caring about that side. I can see the argument of the dryness from there. From that perspective, this being a Western developed game, I would hope that this could be like at least a notch win that Western game that a Western dev can get out of this very dry year from that side of the aisle for that has been 2024, despite the fact that Japan has more than compensated this year with quality games, like amazing games, quantity of games, and all of that. And I wanted to do well for BioWare's sake, also specifically for that.
Yeah, so, I don't think this has been a dry year. I've gone back and played some backlog games like the Mafias and stuff like that. But Rebirth and Stellar Blade in this year, and you know, just these, I'm good. Like there are so many games released over time that I never feel like it's really that dry of a time, because there's always something you haven't played that you can just go back and play.
Yeah, I'm gonna like.
That's really it.
Yeah, I'm gonna share you like, I love documenting how a year has gone for me. Usually what like my top 10 is and all of that, I'm going to be sharing it to you in your Discord. So just so you kind of see where I am just with honorable mentions alone. So give me a second. Because this, when I hear that, I'm sending it to you.
Yeah.
Just look at that list.
Yeah. I played 1, 2, 3, 4. I played 4 of your top 10 here.
And look at that honorable mention list. If I find it big, because honorable mention list is, with the exception of a few that I finished, and I'm like, I like that, but it's not top 10 worthy. And a lot of those games are like still games I haven't finished. When I look at that list, that's why I'm like, Jesus Christ, this has been like a wonderful release calendar year, and I'm still having games coming.
Yeah, I mean, if I pull up my own list here from just trophies, because I mostly play. I mean, on PC. I did Life is Strange True Colors. That's not this year though. I played some Crusader Kings and whatnot, but I did Outlaws, Concord, Stellar Blade, Dragon's Dogma, and Rebirth, and Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. So like those are my games from this year. So is it a ton of games from this year? No, it's not a ton.
Fairly sizable amount still.
Yeah, but it's still stuff.
So. And the fact that I played a lot of that, that's why I've been like, the reality of anyone telling me it's a dry year, it's only dry if you're very close-minded and very specific about a style of game. And that's why, like, at least, even though I shouldn't be rooting for you motherfuckers, like, I want to give you the Dragon Age, the Dragon Age win as a Western win, because y'all have not had a win from that side. Me that love how can I say that? Like, I love gaming and testing games. Like, this has been an embarrassment of riches.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. That's the gut check for Dragon Age. I can't wait to reconvene in 2 weeks with you, with you, Don. I'm slotting you in, hopefully I can get you in like the week of the election, because that will be like both PS5 Pro's release, and you'll potentially have had time to play Dragon Age, and I would love to hear.
I mean, I'll definitely have played Dragon Age. Whether I've had time on the PS5 Pro depends on when we would record.
Yes,
but yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and we'll definitely get checked. But that's what I would love. Just follow on, like hearing your gut check here.
Sounds good.
And seeing where it all landed, because like next week is going to be Paul, and we're going to be talking about that. So that's going to be it for topics for today. And I'm just going to read us the releases for the calendar week of October 27th to November 2nd. So the first game is Sulfur on PC, coming on October 28th. We also got Eve Galaxy Conquest iOS Android on October 29th. Life is Strange Double Exposure coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S on PC on October 29th. Monster High Skulltimate Secrets coming to PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on October 29th. Post Trauma coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on October 29th. After 14 years, Red Dead Redemption coming to PC on October 29th. Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket coming to iOS and Android on October 30th. These Doomed Isles coming to PC on October 30th. Unmaked and Inner Journey, I thought it said Unmasked for some reason, is coming on October 30th. Clock Tower Rewind coming to PS5, PS4, and Switch on October 31st. Dragon Age The Veilguard coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on October 31st. Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered coming to PS5 and PC on October 31st. Shadows of the Damned Hell Remastered coming to PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on October 31st. Slime 3K coming to Rise Against the Despot coming to PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on October 31st. Albatross PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on November 1. Farmagia coming to PS5, Switch, and PC on November 1st. And Last Spartan, Glory Over Madness coming to PC on November 1st. Another dry week. Yeah, another dry. Yeah, go for it.
Just one correction. It is Unmasked. That's Unmasked. A typo in the document. Awesome. Yeah, I checked for you because I was like, Unmasked sounds like a weird name.
Exactly. Thank you. I was like,
yeah, it is Unmasked and Inner Journey.
Yeah, screw your GameSpot. I use your list and I copied it. So sweet. But yeah, a lot of games here. Obviously, the big one is Dragon Age The Veilguard. I did upgrade the Horizon Zero Dawn thing. So
Me too. It preloaded today. It just preloaded.
I preloaded it also today. I'm gonna like run around and see and just get a feel. I feel like that's gonna be a good PS5 Pro test.
I will not be doing that anytime soon, but I have it downloaded just because.
Yeah, you'll have it there. I wonder if I can just put my save and the trophies will pop. If not, I'll just do another run because I like.
Probably, it probably will. I wouldn't. It is a remaster, so it probably will.
Yeah, and
Spider-Man did.
Yes. I would recommend people check the Digital Foundry review. They got early access to Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, and they did work. Was it worth the time? Eye of the beholder, but they did work. Like Nixus did.
It's definitely worth the $10.
Yes,
exactly. The work they did is $10. If you got it.
Yeah, it's $10 worth it. It's not just a resolution bump. It's like texture reworks, lighting reworks, character animation reworks. It's like that is worth the $10. So. Yeah. So yeah, it's like that's for next week. Again, like this, just shower. It's like this feels like being in a waterfall of games that just won't stop. There's so many. You really have to pick the poison here, but that poison is called Dragon Age for next week, and I can wait. Hopefully the reviews are great, and then we'll get to talk about it next week. And hopefully I have time to play it because I also have that redacted thing to play. So Don, that takes us to the end of this week's episode. Where can people find you, good sir?
You can find me on Twitter at Joseph_La_Russa. You can find me writing for Season Gaming. Most recently, I had published my Yakuza piece on that website. I had done my RN History Untold review a little while ago. I have not done anything in a bit because I was out of town. I am going to do the Life is Strange double exposure review, so check that probably. And it should be a video as well. We didn't get a video out for Ara, but it should be a video out sometime next weekend, not this upcoming one, the one after. We should have a written and video review right around then. I'm gonna write something on the Mafia series after I've finished my Odyssey through them. That is my plan. I don't know a lot of what I write will depend on how Mafia 3 goes in the end. We'll
Yeah.
see
Oh yeah.
how I feel about that. But it's as I've started Mafia 3, the direction of the piece has already changed because I have thoughts,
Mhm.
but we'll see. And that's it for me. So season
Can't
gaming, writing, and
yeah, can't
Twitter.
wait to can't wait to read where it lands. Having bear witness to the road. Like
Yeah,
we've all bear like listener, like we've all bear witness to like his journey here.
yeah.
So and you can find me at _Drew on Twitter/X, also at @Drew on Blue Skies, because everyone seems to be slowly like migrating over there. And you can find me a lot at Alejandro Segovia 93 on Threads also. And then you can find my written content both at thecriticalcorner.com, where you can read my old stuff, and my newer stuff over at seasongaming.com, where you can read my reviews for this year for The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Skull and Bones, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Final Fantasy 16 The Rising Tide, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Arcade Wrath of the Mutants, which sucks, Stellar Blade, Star Wars Outlaws, in op-ed for why Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is a good was a good reminder of the days gone by of the old style shooter, why that works. And hopefully very soon my review for Alan Wake 2 The Lake House, which also includes my thoughts on the Night Springs DLC from earlier this year. And also I'll be reviewing Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Redacted sometime soon. So, and maybe that will be it for me for this year when it comes to season gaming, but we'll see. But that's it for today, and I want to thank all of the listeners and viewers for watching this week's episode. If you like what you watch or listen, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share it around, and comment, say anything you may want to say about it, like maybe Dragon Age, who knows. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week. Here, Mr. Don is going to be here in 2 weeks to give us his thoughts on Dragon Age. Can't wait
Sure
to
thing.
retouch on that conversation. I'll
Yep.
see you next week with Paul. And until next time, go play some games. Enjoy what's left before election season comes to its conclusion. And press X to play. Hasta la vista, baby.